Go live. Okay, so apparently we're live. And now I can see that there's viewers here. All right, well, this is Blewett's Blitz Live without Blewett. Got Kyle Smith here with
it's just Blitz.
With the great Michael Nania, who, as I was reading some of his pieces just before, realized you are a machine, sir. You never stop plugging away on the content. Anyway, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good. Zach Wilson is back, so Jet season officially starts this week. Last 3 weeks didn't even happen. This week is week 1 for all intents and purposes. So I'm excited, looking forward to it.
Come on, man. That Browns game happened. It definitely happened.
That happened. That did happen. That definitely happened.
You know, like, so when did you, I'm curious, when, I know you've been like a Jets fan your whole life, but like, when did you really start following the team closely?
2011 was really my first close season. The 2010 playoffs is kind of when like they got my attention, I would say, and that's kind of what wrote me in. And then the next season was my first kind of full start to finish following the season, following the team. So yeah, basically I'm the reason for this whole playoff drought. You can blame me.
I will not blame you, sir. If any one individual gets the blame, we know who it is. It's Joe Namath. But anyway, yeah, you know, so 2010, that season in particular, there were so many comebacks. I mean, the Jets were a good team. You know, they had a really solid defense, solid run game, good offensive line, but in some ways they were poorly coached and the offense was not good overall. But man, they had many good comebacks that year. You know, the Texans one comes to mind, and that they should not have won that game. But that Browns comeback, man, that was something else, man.
Yeah,
that was something else. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. So anyway, let's look at the chat right now. Shout out to Snoopy. What's up? He said about Joe not being here. Don't blame him. Let's see. How do I? Oh, here. Hi. There we go. Oh, okay. This is actually easier than I thought. I'm just figuring that out as we go, guys. Rodrigo says, "What's up, Kyle and Michael?" What's up, Rodrigo? Jets Chaos says, "The infamous Michael Nania." Why is he infamous? Famous, infamous.
I don't think I'm famous. I guess infamous is good though.
You're famous on Jets Twitter, no doubt, no doubt about that. All right. Snoopy says, "Is Joe okay?" Yeah, Joe. I assume Joe's very much okay. Probably better than okay. He's out in Italy, doing his thing with his wife. So we wish him well. And yeah, he didn't have to watch that atrocity last week. Let's see. Keegan says, "Kyle and Nani, a dope combo." Anyway, so I will be here for probably a little bit longer than Michael will. So just to let you guys know, if you have any questions or things that you want to ask Michael, definitely ask it sooner rather than later, because he will be probably hopping off before me. Let's see. Scroll through this chat. What's up, Kyle? Rob D says that. All right. Am I seeing any questions or anything at the moment? Okay. Here we go. We got one. With McDermott at left tackle, why not have Ruckert stay in the backfield as Zach's bodyguard? Well, I think this is a serious question. You don't really. I mean, obviously you'll keep a back in to pass protect every now and then, but you also have to have the threat of them going out on a pass, and Ruckert can go out on a pass as well. But just schematically, keeping him in the backfield all game, you know, team would catch on to it, and it's just not something you can do for the entirety of the game. Anyway, but
yeah, but it is an interesting discussion though to think about how they are gonna try to work around that with McDermott, you know, presumably starting this game. I don't think they're gonna put Remmers or Cedric however you pronounce his name out there.
Ogbuehi, I think.
Ogbuehi. So what do you think? Do you think they should shade more tight end help over there? Do you think they should call some rollouts to the right side? You know, have some more condensed splits, chip them with the receivers. What do you think they should do?
All the above. They have to do a lot of that because you can't leave McDermott on an island.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, if you look at this past game versus what we saw in Cleveland, Hendrickson was more of a terror than Myles Garrett was. But clearly the Jets staff was more scared of Myles. And this doesn't mean that Hendrickson played better than Myles Garrett per se. But from my perspective, I mean, he had more one-on-one opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
and he took advantage of them. And obviously he went against inferior tackle play as well. But the Jets, and Saleh even kind of bragged about this a little bit. He was saying like, Myles Garrett's a great player. He made sure to praise him, but he did say that like, we also did a good job, giving him a hard time out there. And they did, they chipped him a lot and stuff. But I mean, you're just going to, now granted, there is no TJ Watt this week. So, if you're going like, why am I forgetting his name? But 97, he's an absolute terror. Hayward. Yeah. So Hayward, even though they might list, I don't know what he's listed in as Madden, if they list him as a D end or whatever, he's an inside guy. He's like a 3-tech type of dude. He's an absolute terror. He's not going to come off the edge as like a 5 technique or something like that and scare you. But, so without TJ Watt, the Jets, I mean, they're catching a huge break, huge break. Yeah. And by the way, Michael, so I actually was going through one of your pieces earlier, and you had mentioned just how worse the Steelers are without Watt. Would you like to go through like some of those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, the impact is huge. They're 0-6 without him right now. Obviously, that includes the last 2 games. And you could see it in the pass rush numbers. With him, they're averaging, I think, 3.5 sacks per game. Without him, only 1.7. So basically cuts the pass rush in half. And you could also look at, you mentioned Hayward, but they also have Alex Highsmith, who is a pretty good edge rusher in his own right. Obviously, no Watt. But they do have him, and he lines up on the right side. So McDermott is going to get him, and that's still a pretty good challenge. He has 4.5 sacks this year, but you could see with and without Watt, there is a huge difference in Hayward and Highsmith's production when he's been in there versus when he's out. In the first game, Hayward and Highsmith had 11 pressures combined. Last 2 games, they only have 10 combined. So that's 5 per game between the 2 of them. So basically, they as well have seen their impact cut in half since Watt went out. So he has a huge impact. It goes beyond just, blocking him. It also, the impact that he has on everyone else is there as well. So it's still going to be tough because, Highsmith is pretty good. He is, I would say, above average, and being on the right side, McDermott's going to get him. So you have to help him out. But other than those 2, the Steelers really don't have a whole lot to worry about up front. So they do get a huge break with Watt being out. But regardless, we've seen over the years that a bad offensive line can make any D-line look good. So they do have to find a way to work around McDermott. But outside of that, AVT and Mitchell had a really good game last week. If that right side can hold it down, then I think that could help them feel good about pushing that help to McDermott's side.
Yeah, I do agree. This was a big step-up game for Max Mitchell, in my opinion. Not that he was going against the greatest competition, because Hendrickson pretty much almost exclusively lines up on one side. But I thought Max Mitchell played tremendously better in this game. Like, he struggled quite a bit against Clowney. He had some nice reps against Myles Garrett at times, and I think you highlighted that on Twitter a little bit. But, Max Mitchell, like, dude, we're pretty happy we took him in the 4th round. Although I'm not ready to crown him so much as some others might be. But another good question. So Rob D says, thoughts on Ulbricht's latest comments? I only saw the quote, but would be interested to actually know his tone when talking about Quinnen. And this is a good question, Rob. I pretty much said the same thing to Michael before we actually started the broadcast. Michael, you actually heard how he said it. I don't know if you can elaborate, because I was kind of like, I was in Rob's position. I was like, did he say it like this? Is he saying it in this way? Like, oh, is this like a kind of like, oh, let me throw like a spark at Quinnen and try to motivate him? Maybe he's throwing a little bit of shade at him. And by the way, for those who don't even know what comments we're talking about, I'm going to paraphrase as best I can. The press was asking Ulbricht, why isn't Quinnen playing a higher percentage of snaps? And Ulbricht said something along the lines of, sometimes I'll look over to him on the sideline because I want to put him in, but then I see him over there, like, gasping for air. So, like, what was the exact context of the tone of his voice? Did it sound like this was just a way of him making an excuse for himself and for Saleh's philosophy of really limiting their player snaps?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of comments on this. Anyone who follows me know I just put out a bunch of tweets about it. But I guess, to be fair, like, Ulbricht is always very he has a lot of praise for his players when he speaks about them. I don't think he's usually critical, and he did, have that kind of tone when he was making these comments. He said, this is the exact quote, I have it up. He said, he plays at such a high clip and he goes so hard that sometimes more is less, or more isn't necessarily as good, because now you're not seeing the speed, the explosiveness, all the special stuff from an athletic standpoint that he brings. So, there was some praise within there, but I think he was kind of using it as a justification for the strategy, which I don't think is a good strategy, and pretty much any numbers back that up. So I'm very critical of the lack of snaps for Quinnen Williams, because he's playing really good right now. I know you've watched the film as well. I've been watching him, and he's playing really well right now, both run game and pass game, just winning his battles, making plays, causing havoc. But he doesn't get to rack up the same kind of production as other top defensive tackles do, because he's playing, 12 to 15 fewer snaps than guys like Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, Jonathan Allen. These guys are essentially playing, 2 whole drives per game more than he is. So obviously they're going to get more chances to make plays. You look around the league, and there are only 6 teams that are playing their top defensive tackle, their most used defensive tackle, fewer snaps per game than he is. And none of those teams have anyone close to his caliber. Those are teams that, that are justified to be rotation heavy because they don't have a star. But the Jets do in Quinnen Williams, and he really should be playing more snaps. And I looked back after Ulbrich said what he said today to see how Quinnen did in the games where he did play a lot of reps. And back in 2020, there were 3 games where he played at least 50 snaps, over 70% of the snaps the Jets had, and he was dominant in those games. The Broncos, Dolphins, and Raiders games in 2020. Between those 3 games, he had 17 pressures, 10 run stops, 2.5 sacks, 2 pass deflections, a forced fumble, and 6 quarterback hits with 0 missed tackles. And that is incredible production. And I like, when I saw those games, I was looking at the charts of his snaps, and I saw those games come up, and I just remembered his film from those games, how good he was. And those games just prove that he's more than capable of playing a high snap count and maintaining the same level of efficiency and production. So personally, I think that the Jets are really hurting themselves by not playing him more snaps, especially when you consider the guy who's coming in for him is Nathan Shepard, who replaces Quinnen Williams for all of his snaps. He's not done anything this year. He is
or ever
pretty much nothing. I don't know if he's ever done anything. I mean, that's completely right. I can't.
I mean, he's shown, like, listen,
think of a single play.
Any play can, this year, not off the top of my head. I mean, like, he had a couple nice reps in the Colts game last year. He'll flash rarely, but I mean, like, if you're coming in late in the game, and it's your first snap of the game, and you're completely fresh, everyone's gonna flash once in a while, right? Aaron Maben used to flash once in a while, but no, I mean, like, Shepard, and Shepard's really bad against the run too. I mean, he gets moved. Yeah. So, yeah. And so, I've been thinking about this more, because this has been a common theme that we were talking about all off season. And now we're talking about it again, because we're seeing this, stark contrast in play that you just, laid out for us. And I'm starting to think, so, like, I get the whole solid plan, especially as playing defensive line before, and how you want to stay fresh is something we've talked about a lot. But I'm starting to see, I'm trying to think about it from, the perspective of the people who want to see him play more. And I think there's something to, like, the more you play, sometimes you have a tendency to get hot, right? Like, just like, think about, that basketball player, right? Like, how sometimes the announcer will be like, oh, he's on fire, right? Like, like, in football, it might not be like the same exact thing or whatever, but in football, there is something like, okay, you've been setting up this guy to hit him with this move the whole game. And, if you're not able to play the next drive, let's say you were setting him up and you think that you can get him with this counter move in the next drive, but then you're not out there to give him the counter move. Well, you're getting less opportunities to get to the quarterback. So, like, at what point are they, do they need to play more? Obviously, he can't play 100% of the snaps. Obviously, he probably couldn't play much more than 80% of the snaps. Do you know off the top of your head what percentage of the snaps Aaron Donald plays?
Yeah, that's pretty much he might be, like, in his own stratosphere, but generally, I think the way you put it is the limit. Like, 80% is about where most of the top guys are. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when the Dolphins signed Ndamukong Suh back in 2015, I believe it was, and they were paying him much more than what they were going to pay Tannehill. Like he was getting like legit, like his salary was higher than many starting quarterbacks throughout the league. And even he was not playing much above like low 80% of the snaps. So, you know, but Michael has a great piece on jetsxfactor.com. Michael, can you tell us the name of that piece so people could look at it?
Yeah. See, it came out a couple days ago. I said the Jets need a free Quinnen Williams.
Jets need a free Quinnen Williams.
Yeah.
And in that piece, you're going to see some of the statistics of some of the other leading pass rushers on the interior defensive line throughout the league. And you're going to see that, you're talking, those guys are in the 70%, sometimes high 70%. They're playing a whole lot more than Quinnen Williams. So, and, you were talking, it's not just the numbers and stuff. It's also the film that's backing it up. And I've been highly critical of Quinnen Williams. And when I say highly critical, I mean in the sense that I don't think he's kind of lived up to expectations. But as I was telling you in some messages that we were sending a little bit earlier, a couple of days ago, I thought he's been really good. And then I recently finished the film from this past game. And I'm thinking over a 3-game stretch, this might be the best 3-game stretch that I've seen in his career, including his sophomore season, where, he had a pretty good year. So I don't know if you'd agree with that. But I think that's where I'm at right now with him. So I definitely want to see him playing more snaps for sure.
No, I definitely agree. And, that sophomore season, I think later in the year, he had a really good run. Like 2 of those games I mentioned, the Raiders and Dolphins, and when he's playing a lot of snaps, but he's been really good right now. And I think the point you brought up about, sort of setting up moves and kind of getting hot is that's definitely a good point, because I think there is a conversation to be had with, rust versus rhythm when you're a pass rusher, because like you said, there's such a tactical side to pass rushing, setting up moves, feeling out the guy you're rushing against, and just kind of noticing tendencies, building on them. And, when you're rotating out, it's harder to get that rhythm going and sort of get hot, like a player might in baseball or in basketball or anything else. So yeah, I think he should be playing more snaps, but doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon.
I mean, at a certain point, if he keeps dominating, sometimes the players can put a coach in a box where it's like, well, how can we keep this guy off the field, right? So, he might force the Jets' hand. And if they keep being so stubborn, then that's another huge red flag. Let's look at some of the chats right here. Let's see. It's a little bit, the text is a little bit smaller than what I'm used to seeing on YouTube. So if I pronounce it, that might be why. Mispronounce. Sirhan the man. What is your top 3 bonehead plays of the game, Kyle and Michael? Mine is Joyner at 3, JFM at 2, and Whitehead wins the game. Shaking my head. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, top 2, I definitely agree. Joyner plays is escaping me. Which one is that?
I'm trying to think of that one as well. Maybe someone in the chat can tell us. Joyner play. I'm sure it'll come to us at some other point.
Yeah, I mean, those top 2 are definitely good picks, and the Jets.
I was definitely more angry at the JFM play because I felt like that was something more in your control. I mean, players all over the league will hit without wrapping. It's not something I did when I was playing ball because my coaches were very big on emphasizing wrapping and stuff, and I was not much of a big hitter. I was more so like, let me make sure I just get the guy to the ground. I didn't really have the speed and closing ability to kind of like really lay guys out like that. But there is something to like, really hitting a guy with your feet, while in stride. It's harder to do while wrapping. So I kind of get why that happened, but you hate to see something like that. That should not happen in the NFL. So if you're going to deliver a huge hit like that, you better make sure you're going to bring him to the ground.
No, I agree. That was a huge killer. And I was going to say the Jets have had, between the 2 losses this year, they've had a lot of these plays that were just huge momentum swingers that have made a huge difference on the scoreboard. Although the Jets are, at times against the Ravens and Bengals, really playing competitively with them, but they've just had these enormous mistakes like the JFM penalty, the Whitehead terrible angle. Like these are plays that just just like that, split-second decision can change an entire drive. When, prior to that, you're playing good defense or you have a good drive going. And you look back to the Ravens game, Carter drops a touchdown, Hall fumbles in the red zone. And then all the touchdowns the Ravens scored were third down plays when they had them on 3rd and long. So we've seen the Jets at times this year throughout these 2 losses, be in position to compete with the Ravens and Bengals, but it's just in the biggest moments, they've not been coming up big. Obviously against the Browns, they did do that. Granted, they're given a chance they maybe shouldn't have had, but they did capitalize on it. But in the other 2 games, we've seen competitive football, and they did outgain the Ravens by over 100, and the Bengals, they're only outgained by 2 yards, but then the scoreboard comes up so lopsided because the Jets are not on the right end of these huge plays. And I would throw in another one in addition to those 2, the Corey Davis penalty near the end of the game. And a lot of people didn't see it. I didn't see it at first because the CBS broadcast, completely cut out and nobody saw like a span of 3 or 4 plays there. But the Jets were early in the 4th quarter driving to make it a 1-score game. Were absolutely still in it if they could punch it in for a touchdown. They have a 3rd and 6 in the red zone, obvious 4-down territory. And Corey Davis just grabs Eli Apple's face mask and shakes his head and gets an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Now they're in an completely unescapable 3rd and 21, and then they ended up turning it over on the strip sack. So that was a really bad one, and you could see it on the coach's film. And I put out a clip of it a few days after the game, and that one was maybe even more inexcusable than the JFM one, because especially
since he's a leader, he's a veteran leader.
Yeah, exactly. Like JFM one, that is still not excusable, but sometimes that doesn't get called, and it's you can argue it's soft, although it is the rule. But the Davis one is just cannot happen for a veteran player. So I would actually put that one number 1, I think, or maybe number 2 after Whitehead, but it should definitely be up there.
Okay. Let's see. Am I seeing anything else in the chat yet that I'll highlight? I'll go back to the chat at a different point. All right. At some point, a little bit later in the stream, you and I are going to look at the Steelers roster, talk about that, maybe talk about some matchups, and then we will give a score prediction before I let you go, but not yet. So I saw you send out a tweet. I think it was earlier today, or maybe it was a string of tweets. And you were talking about Zach Wilson, and you said something along the lines of, if we can get the improvisational ability of the Zach that we saw in the Titans game, and the pocket passing ability and decision-making of Zach Wilson that we saw in the Bucs game, that's going to be a pretty good game. You just say something like that?
Yeah. Talking about those two
I would sign up for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, I don't know if I put anyone as a mod, or if that's like an automatically set thing that Blewett has with some of our regulars. But if they can get these spammers out of here, that would be much appreciated. We take that type of Zach Wilson. I mean, what are you expecting from him this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, talking about that tweet, I mean, and I have an article actually I was working on that I'm going to put out tomorrow. But I think those 2 games kind of showed the 2 different sides of him, that if he can blend, he can be really good. Titans game was explosive. You saw all the highlights and the special traits that he has to make plays off schedule, the deep passing, the mobility. You saw all those things. That's what puts him over the top as potential top 5 quarterback. But you also have to be able to do the minutia, just down to down, executing the offense, make the easy throws, get the ball out quick. And that's what the Bucs game was. There aren't really any explosive plays in that Bucs game, but you put on the film and you just look at the tight window throws he's making, short to intermediate, getting the ball out quick, being decisive and confident. That's what the Bucs game was. So I think that shows you that he is capable of, even outside of the highlights, just being a guy who could operate from the pocket and use those traits that he has to be a, more of a game managing quarterback who could just move the ball more methodically. And that's what he did against the Bucs. So those 2 games, I think, really kind of combining those together are what he should be at his ceiling. But this week, I think, it's interesting because
let me pause you for one moment before you get to this week.
Yeah.
So my question for you before we get to next week is, which version are you more scared that we will not get on a consistent basis?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the Tampa Bay version.
Yeah, me
Just
too.
because that was the biggest issue throughout his rookie season is, he would occasionally throw a screen pass in the dirt. Sometimes he would miss some of these throws that you should make or have the indecisiveness. The Titans game, I feel like we're generally going to pretty consistently see him be able to pull those out every now and then, because the athleticism shouldn't go anywhere and the confidence to, take some of those shots down the field and the arm strength. So I think we're going to see that stuff occasionally. He could do it more consistently because he didn't match the Titans game again. So he could still get better at doing that more consistently. But I think that should always be there, at least occasionally. But the Bucs game, that's what he's got to be able to really do consistently. So I would say that's what I'm more afraid of him not being. Can he be that consistent as he was in that game with making, quick slants over the middle, comebacks and outs on the outside, just those running the offense from the pocket as efficiently as he did in that game?
Do we know? Actually, I'm not going to ask that question. I was going to ask some dumb question about what percentage of snaps he took from the shotgun versus under center. And I don't think that's a really important question. Let's see. Return of the Jedi, Rusty Spooner. Ulbrich is terrible, and Salah's 60-40 have to go. It's BS garbage doing hockey line shifts with our defensive front four. Coaches are holding our team back at Kyle and Nania. And then he's saying, Jets and muscles. All right, we love you, Rusty. And then Rusty also says that we are awesome. Appreciate that, Rusty.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, something needs to be done. I mean, listen, so the Jets do have depth on the defensive line. And sure, maybe you want to go with a more of a rotation at some of the edge guys, because if you look at, okay, what's the drop off as a pass rusher right now between someone like JJ and someone like Jacob Martin? Maybe it's not as big as someone like the drop off between Quinnen and the drop off between we were just talking about him, Nathan Shepard.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe you do still want to go overall a heavy rotation, but probably not with that one player.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there is, in many parts of this rotation right now, like all for it, because, the Jets don't really have a second premier edge rusher outside of Lawson. So, you mentioned JJ Martin, like go ahead and rotate those guys, and Clemens in there. And Bryce Huff, interesting guy to throw in this. Why he's not playing, I don't know. But like you mentioned, I think Williams or Quinnen specifically is the guy who gets brought up here just because I think of that aspect of who's replacing him. If Shepard were replacing him and he was playing really well, and you could say, okay, we've arrested Quinnen plus arrested Shepard, who, plays great, efficient football when he's in there, then I think people would be on board with it. But right now, Quinnen is getting replaced by an absolute do nothing. So that's where the issue comes in, I think.
And I'll say this right now, in terms of like just pass rush right now, and there's been a lot of talk about Bryce Huff, and you're leading that charge, Michael. In terms of a pass rusher right now, Bryce Huff is definitely better than Jermaine Johnson. Some people might not want to hear that, but that is the truth. I was pretty disappointed. Not that I wasn't expecting it. I mean, Joe and I talked for so many months on here about how he's going to struggle early as a pass rusher. By the way, he's got some really good reps in the run game, though. Yeah, so I'm not trying to shit on Jermaine Johnson. This is actually exactly what we expected. But there are some reps when it's almost like a bull rush. Like he just literally comes into a guy with two arms, but it's not much power because he's like, okay, he's going to throw a counter off this bull. And it's basically very little speed to power because he always slows himself up before he makes contact. And then he's just kind of basically leaning into the offensive tackle. There was some really ugly pass rush reps from Jermaine Johnson in this past game, if we're being honest. So, when you think about it like that, I know that Bryce Huff is not going to give you the run support that Michael Clemens is going to give you, or he's not going to give you the run support that Jermaine Johnson is going to give you. But right now, those two guys, he is going to give you more juice as a pass rusher. No doubt about it.
No, yeah. I mean, Jermaine and Clemens have been good in the run game. That's for sure. But I think but you're not getting much pass rush out of either of them right now. I think they're a big part of why the pass rush hasn't been great, because they are getting reps and they're not doing much of anything with them. And like you said, I think that's what we kind of expected. We figured it would take JJ some time to get the pass rush technique sort of improving to an NFL caliber level. So that is what we're seeing so far. And the Bryce Huff situation it's tough because whose snaps does he take? Because the Jets clearly like all these other guys they have playing, but he is a better pass rusher than two of the guys who are playing a lot of reps right now. And this pass rush is a huge weakness when it should have been a strength. So I definitely would look to activate him and just find ways to get him snaps however they can.
Who are you going to deactivate in this game then? If you're activating him, who's going on deactivated?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, one solution that I've kind of thought of is, maybe take Shepard. Not that I think this is going to happen, but take Shepard out of the rotation, maybe move JFM back to primarily interior, which is another thing I think
I would sign up for that.
This pass rush, and then then you have Clemens and Johnson sort of take some of those edge reps, and JFM's remaining edge reps could be split between all of the rest of the players. Clemens and Johnson on rundowns. You have Huff to take them on pass down. So I think that's something I would do, but it doesn't seem like that's on the table.
I'll sign up for that in a heartbeat, but yeah, don't necessarily predict that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And speaking of predictions, Daniel C has a bold one. He says that the Jets won't be able to establish a run game early because the O-line are weaklings and Zach will pass 50 times and throw 3 picks. If Zach throws 50 times in his NFL sophomore season debut, I am going to be pissed. But could I conceivably see it happening? Possibly. When you see what's happened the first several weeks, and part of the reason they've had to throw so much is the run game has been very disappointing so far.
Yeah, I sure hope he doesn't throw 50 passes and 3 picks, but the way the game flow has gone the first 3 games, it's been demanded to throw 50 plus passes a game, so it's definitely possible.
Curious for your thoughts on this, Michael. Particularly when watching this past game, I was thinking about how Lou Anarumo and that Bengals defense, not only were they, beating the Jets, but I also thought that they were outcoached as well. There were many times when the Jets were just, letting free guys run through gaps. Like they had guys in gaps at the line of scrimmage that just simply weren't blocked. Like there were times when the Jets blockers were holding their own in the run game, but you just had, linebackers running right through gaps. And listen, if you're a running back, you can try to avoid a linebacker in the hole, and maybe you will, but that's going to take you off your track. And then someone else is going to be able to hit you after that. So I not only did I think that, the Jets just didn't do enough, DJ Reader, and they caught a huge break, him going out in the game, because he's a monster. But yeah, I felt that from a schematic standpoint, there was very poor angles in the Jets run game. And NFL blocking, so many of these guys are so strong. It's so hard to get movement on these big, massive 300-pound athletic defensive linemen. It's how can you create proper angles in the run game to, get that little bit of crease of running room. And if you look at what Kyle Shanahan's done in San Francisco the past couple of years, he's so good at creating those little bit of angles, but we were not seeing it this week. I don't know if you saw the same thing as me.
No, I agree. I think first couple of games I might have been a little bit higher in the run game than you were. I think there were some good moments in terms of run blocking, and overall, I guess it would be maybe an average, a little bit better run game the first 2 games. But this game, I think it definitely took a step back. Like you said, it definitely seemed like there were a lot of plays where there just wasn't much of a chance for the run to be successful, regardless of the blocking. So it definitely wasn't the best called run game. But looking forward to this week, the run game is a really interesting factor because you have Zach Wilson coming back, which you hope upgrades your passing game, but at the same time, you have this run game that you really want to get going because you've barely used it at all the first 3 games. But how do you strike that balance this week? Because you don't want to run the ball too much early and get into a hole and get Zach, playing from behind before he gets into a rhythm. But you also, like I said, still want to get these carries up. Michael Floor even said it this week that he's looking to get the rush attempts up. So I'm interested to see how they work the run pass balance in this one, especially early on, because I think there's a lot of untapped potential with the run game, but you also have a lot of untapped passing potential with Zach Wilson coming back.
In a Shanahan offense, you have to establish the run. It's,
Yep.
In the NFL is, running secondary. Yeah, but it's close. I mean, it's not like it's a whole other afterthought. No, the run sets up the pass in the Shanahan system. This question that we have on the screen right now, I'm going to let you answer this, Michael, because you recently wrote a piece about this. John Hepburn says, "What is up with Carl Lawson? He's not living up to the contract." Well, Michael has a recent article about this, which is titled what, Michael?
I think that's about the exact same title. I think it was "What's Going On with Carl Lawson."
How about that? I wonder if John Hepburn knew that when he subconsciously knew that when he was typing up his question. So why don't you answer that for us?
Yeah, no, I think with Carl Lawson right now, I'm a little more optimistic about what's to come for him than a lot of people might be. But at the same time, I think I'm equally critical of the production that he's given so far, because he definitely hasn't been winning at the rate that you wanted him to win. And this is especially true the last couple games. Like first game, I think he was pretty good. You're playing the Ravens, you're playing Lamar Jackson. You maybe want to take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, have some discipline on the edge, and he did that really well. But last couple games, he has gotten a chance to just pin his ears back and rush, and the wins haven't been there as often as you want them to be. And that's even outside of sacks. I think with Carl Lawson, sacks aren't really what he was signed for. And you hope you get the sacks, obviously, but he was signed because he had the fourth most pressures at his position in 2020, and most of those pressures were so quick and so dominant that he's just ruining plays oftentimes before he even gets a chance to get a sack because the ball's coming out so quickly. So that's what I think he was signed to do, and he hasn't really gotten those. He has been getting some wins that take a longer time to develop, but they haven't really affected the play that much. So, but I think watching him right now, the thing that has me optimistic is I think athletically it's all still there. I do think he is still as explosive as he used to be, just as powerful. You could see glimpses of that in some of these reps in this Bengals game, even on the sack he had against the Browns. But you could still see he's getting off the line very quickly, and when he does get his hands placed into the chest of the tackle he's going against, you could see the movement. There's even a rep he had in the preseason against the Giants where he just, and actually in one against the Ravens, where he just completely threw the tackle past the quarterback to create pressure. So I think physically it's all still there. I really think just watching his film on a snap to snap basis, and in that article I included a clip of every single pass rush snap he played, so you could see his entire process. I really think, just like you mentioned before, Kyle, like pass rushing is a hot and cold sort of thing. Sometimes you have your rhythm, sometimes you don't. Right now, I don't think he's totally on the mark from a technical standpoint. I think he was trying to, throw a lot of multifaceted, longer developing moves this past game against the Bengals, and Jonah Williams kind of just had his number. They are former teammates, so there's some familiarity, but
Did I lose you, Michael? Might have lost Michael, but it seems like I'm still going. Okay, so I will comment on what Michael said. So in terms of Carl Lawson, I've been a little bit disappointed so far. In terms of the juice, I wonder if I have questioned it while watching the film if it's still there. I do think it is. Like when you look at his sack against the Browns, against big old Jedrick Wills, that was an explosive type of sack. He really pushed him back. Carl Lawson wins with power. That's the name of his game, speed to power. He's not Khalil Mack, but that's Khalil Mack's type of game. Carl Lawson is not like one of the amazing things about Myles Garrett is he's so big and strong and speed to power. He can win with everything. But when you watch Myles Garrett, he had several reps against the Jets where he's able to bend at 6'4", 6'5", 270 plus. He can bend, not as good as Von Miller, but pretty darn close. Carl Lawson doesn't have that to his game, but he is someone who, he loves to use that long arm. He likes to get his contact on you early. And if you're not prepared for it, he is going to walk you back into the quarterback. And I think that that's one of the reasons why his sack numbers throughout his career haven't been as high is, if you're bull rushing a quarterback, or excuse me, an offensive tackle into the quarterback, it's going to be a little bit harder to sack him with the offensive tackle still in your way. But that still really disrupts a play because a quarterback can't really throw the ball that well if he has a big 300-something pound offensive lineman and he can't step into his throw. So Carl Lawson is a disruptor. Unfortunately, we haven't seen as much disruption as we want to this point. So I see that Michael has left. Hopefully I can get him back in here. If not, we really appreciate him coming, but I think we'll get him back on. All right. So let me look through the chat and see what else is going on. I see that Hawk is in here. He agrees with Nani 100%. Not sure as to what. I think is it Abi Fresh or AB Fresh? He was disagreeing with me about something before. Oh, there's Michael.
You got me?
To the stream. Yeah, I got you now. Can you hear me now?
Internet went out. Yep.
Oh, all good. So I just
yeah. How much of what I said about Lawson did you hear?
Oh, but I think I got pretty much everything. I think you were pretty much done talking about Lawson, and I believe that's when it cut out, if I'm not mistaken. So
okay, yeah.
And then
what do you think about Lawson? Do you mostly agree with that? Do you see something different?
Yeah. So I feel like there've been times when I watched him and I was like, yeah, does he still have it? Does he still have it? But then I think back to, that big sack in a big moment that he had against Jedrick Wills. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's still there, man. And I was also kind of like hitting on your point about, the name of Carl Lawson's game isn't really sacks. And I was kind of saying why that is. Like he's like a disruptor. He's a big speed to power guy. And sometimes like he likes to walk linemen back into the quarterback, which makes it really hard for a quarterback to throw the ball, but it's going to be a little bit harder to sack the quarterback because
it's interesting you bring that up. There was one rep just like that against the Bengals. I don't know if you remember it, but he had a really good bull rush, finally got one in late in the game, and he got an arm on Joe Burrow's shoulder, but he was able to get out of it and scramble. But
yeah, Joe Burrow, and let's be honest, Joe Burrow, I don't know that he's top 5, and I would take guys like Herbert and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes over him, even though despite what Skip Bayless says. But Joe Burrow is very good at, creating stuff and improvising. And he's really good at, keeping 2 hands on the ball and sliding around and not fumbling in those situations. But yeah, so Carl Lawson, like he's a disruptor. He walks people back, but it's going to be harder to create sacks when the lineman is still in front of you. But I feel like he does still have the juice there. It is 3 games, and we must keep in mind that, and the Jets were playing it soft with him all preseason, rightfully so. So, his time is still coming, I feel like he's going to heat up. So should we be a little bit concerned? Maybe, but we've seen flashes, guys. I mean, the flashes are there. In terms of pass rushing, there are many more. I'll be honest. I had high expectations for Jacob Martin. He's been a bigger disappointment to me thus far, because when you sign him, and they're both mostly pass rush specialists. I mean, like, you really don't want either of them. Like right now, if we're being honest, Clemens and JJ are both better in the run game than Jacob Martin or Carl Lawson. Yeah. I have no problem saying that at this point. But Jacob Martin has been a bigger disappointment to me. I mean, I really thought like, man, this guy's going to come in third downs and, he's going to be, this is a little bit hyperbole. He's going to be a terror off the edge, but sometimes I've been like wondering where the hell is he? Where the hell is he?
Yeah.
And he's not doing much. Anyway.
Yeah, and he also doesn't really finish that well. I feel like he has gotten in there a few times. And he's had some really good chances, especially against the Browns. Had some good chances to finish, and just kind of couldn't finish it. I actually have a clip I think I could share. I'm going to try to do this. I haven't done it before, but I have a clip of that Lawson rep I'm talking about, where he almost sacked Burrow. Here it is. Let's see if this works. Can you see that?
Let me add it to stream.
Okay. Yeah, you see
there
it?
we go. Yep.
Oh yeah, there he is on the right side. So this was a good rep that he had, but he couldn't finish the sack. And he also has really short arms, so that's something that can limit him sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a beautiful rep right there.
Yeah, I think that's what you want to see more from him. Doesn't work out here, but if you do that, I think the majority of the time you're going to get a good result. So more of that, and I think they'll be in good shape.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's look at the chat. Dink and Dunk Fest on Sunday. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe if TJ Watt, the Jets have tried to have like a quicker passing game, but I don't think it's in Zach Wilson's nature to be a dink and dunk passer. And that's part of the reason the Jets drafted him at 2 overall, is he wants to push the ball downfield. Okay. Steven Kapler says, I mean, it's not that rushing game has been bad. LOL. We just abandoned it. If both Carter and Hall are averaging over 4 yards a carry. Yeah, I don't know. Stats can be a little bit misleading there. It's also like part of the thing about running is, sometimes you can have a high yards per carry because you have like a long run or something like that. But, and some of it too is like, okay, what's the context of the carries you're getting? If it's 3rd and long, if it's 3rd and 15, a lot of teams aren't even going to try to throw the ball in that situation. They're just going to do a handoff and see what they get because you don't want to risk the interception. Okay. So if you're getting 7 yards on a 3rd and 15, okay, that's not really doing great for your yards per carry. But the thing about, you want to be consistently gaining positive yards. If you're having, plays where you're losing yardage and then you get behind in the sticks, that's also bad. So, some of those yards per carry stats can be a tad bit misleading. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some credence to that, especially I think a couple of these games, Carter and Hall each had, 120-yard run. And then there were some other stuffs. Again, though, I think I am a little higher than you on the run game because I think first couple games there was pretty good efficiency. And even Hall has, missed a couple, maybe where he could have had more, especially in the Browns game. There was one play to the left side where he had a pretty huge hole and missed it because he bounced it out too much. And I think he improved in this game at, getting north-south, like Saleh kind of pointed out in the press conference against Cincinnati. So I don't know. I think the run game has had flashes. I'd be interested to see how consistent they could be with more carries in a game. Because like you said, I think the biggest thing, especially in this kind of offense where you just want the respect of your run game so you could help out that passing game, open up more space, is the consistency of it. Can you get 4 or 5 on a consistent basis to create 2nd, 3rd, and short, to force defenders to have a respect for the threat of the run game? I think being able to get those consistent chunks has more value than, when your yards per carry kind of gets boosted by bigger runs. At the same time, you still love to have those, and they have gotten a decent amount so far. So I like the run game's potential, and I think with more carries, we could see it unleashed.
And the whole concept of abandoning it, the Jets are abandoning it in a lot of these games because they aren't playing with a lead. I mean, what percentage of the games have they had a lead? I mean, like they've been losing
none.
Like 99% of the game
at the end of that comeback. So other than
Flacco
kneeling down in that game, they haven't run an offensive play with the lead yet.
Yeah, and they've been down by double digits in a decent amount of the percent of the games too. Yeah. So it's hard to justify running in those situations. Okay, so we both were having trouble recollecting the Joyner play, but Rusty has got us. Rusty says, I'm absolutely shocked that Joyner isn't suspended and wasn't kicked out for that hit that he did. Joyner is so bad that he makes me wish for Ashton to play. Shaking my effing head. LOL. Let's go Jets. Thank you, Rusty. Truthfully, man, I'm having a real tough time seeing what Joyner is doing well out there because, and I'm also wondering this, that miscommunication that they had on the Chase touchdown, Right? It's the same thing that Sauce had the previous week when Amari Cooper scored. Okay. Um, I do want to blame Sauce on that, and he's a rookie, so rookie mistake. But you watch that play. What the hell is Joyner doing on that play?
Yeah.
Like he's going to the other part of the field where there's already a safety in that zone. He didn't need to be there. So I mean, Chase basically like nobody was there, and I feel like the corner blew that as well as the safety. So like, what is Joyner giving you? Because he seems to be like he's playing dumb football, right? That touchdown that he gave up to Bateman in week 1, I mean, that was just piss poor technique as well. He misses tackles in the run game. That hit was extremely dirty. And on the T. Higgins play too, and I don't know if you agree with me, Michael, but not only was it a dumb hit, but he might have been able to break the ball up if he didn't get over there so late. Yeah. He was playing in the more center part of the field way too long. And if I remember correctly, this is off the top of my head, Burrow's eyes were on Higgins' side of the field the whole way. So he wasn't even looking Joyner off. So why is Joyner on the other side of the field so long? He should be moving towards Higgins anyway, from the get-go. So he was way too late getting over there. So Joyner has been god awful.
No, I agree. Safety is the weakest position on this team right now. It's tough because like when your plan B is Ashton Davis, who's a guy that I think, especially on this show, when Joe's been on here, has received quite a bit of criticism for his film and his performance. It's tough to want to pull the trigger. I know he made the interception against the Browns, which was a great play, but it is one play. But Joyner's offering nothing because I think, like you said, the appeal is supposed to be that he's not going to play dumb football because he's a veteran. We know he doesn't have any special athletic traits at this point of his career. So he's supposed to at least bring that veteran backbone. But when you're making the plays that he's making, he's the complete opposite of that. So I think they got to pull the trigger soon because as bad as Ashton Davis may have been previously in some areas, at least he gives you some athleticism, some upside potential, because right now Joyner just doesn't offer anything at all.
Yeah. I'm not seeing anything. Okay. So let's see. Seeing if anything is directed towards Michael, because I do want to get to looking at the Steelers roster if we have time.
I might be able to go past 6 o'clock a little bit.
Okay, cool. Michael, all right, then let's look at the chat a little bit more first before we do that. Let's see. Let's see what Joe's saying. Joe Grana, Lawson is not going to take the next step and is only ever going to be a solid rotational guy, which is better than more than half of our overrated D-line Paper Tigers group. I don't think you agree with that, Michael. Am I correct?
Yeah, I don't think he's a solid rotational guy. I mean, the sacks will probably not be there just based on his career production with sacks. But I mean, like, you go back to 2020, and I know Joe did a review of his film, which is out there. I think I've one also, but he was outside of the sack production, just about as dominant as an edge rusher could be. He was really good, just consistently winning, dominant wins. Sack finishing has been an issue for him, but other than that, he wins about at his peak was winning about as often as anyone. So yeah, he can be really good when he's at his best.
There's a reason he got the contract he did, despite his injuries and despite the fact that, he never had the highest sack numbers in the world, but there are some pretty special qualities there. And, the QB hits and the hurries, all that stuff, I think, really kind of shows what his good tape throughout the years has shown. Scott Wilson says, also, what happened to Sherwood? I thought he looked really good in the preseason. We have Harris starting for Quincy. Why? Do you want to answer this, Michael? What did you see from Harris? I was impressed on a couple of plays, and then I saw one quite bad play. But what did you see?
No, I think like you said, there are some good and bad, and he's another one of these linebackers they have who are smaller side, more athleticism. He was actually a safety, I think, as recently as I forget if it was last year or the year before when they converted him over. But he was a safety, so another one of these athletic sort of linebackers. So I think he's closer to replicating what Quincy brings from a skill set standpoint than Sherwood, because Sherwood, as we know, Joe has discussed it a lot, is not the best athlete. So I think that if you're looking to match what Quincy brings skill set wise, Harris is kind of a closer match to that. But Sherwood is the younger player who you drafted last year, who did have a, I think, solid preseason and showed some progress. So yeah, I guess it's sort of the skill set that they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going just based on upside alone, I'd rather have Marcel Harris. And I don't know if the Jets coaching staff is comfortable with him in terms of making calls and things like that as they are with Sherwood. But if you want to see who's got more potential as a potential starter or long-term backup, I'm definitely taking him. There was a couple plays. I saw him start to flash. Obviously, he played more, but a lot of people towards the end of the game when Samaje Perine had his drive where he kept turning his legs and getting first downs, and the Bengals went heavy 13 personnel towards the end of the game. There was a couple plays where Marcel Harris flashed. And I'm thinking like there was one play where the Bengals were running to the left. Marcel Harris was all the way to the right, and he just kept working his way down the line of scrimmage, and made a really impressive tackle. Hit Perine really low, drove him into the ground. It really solid form tackle off the top of my head. And there was one play, I believe it was on that same drive, when he tried to basically backdoor a run. Right, he tried to do some Baltimore CJ Mosley type of thing where, let's say he's supposed to fit the outside gap, right? So he can't really, he has to stay on the outside of the tackle. But if you want to try to be special every now and then, if you have the athletic ability, you might try to bend to the inside of him, wrap yourself around, and then make the tackle on the running back. He tried doing that and it didn't work. And he gave Perine basically the outside to run. So like that type of stuff, that can't happen. That's something, if you're going to do that, you better hit on it, because otherwise, you could create potentially a really big gap in the run game. I don't know if you noticed any of these plays, but this is just me talking off the top of my head. This is what happens when you don't have Blewett here.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that also is kind of similar to what Quincy brings. Like, he's a hit or miss player who really flashes when he does make the play, but also quietly makes quite a few mistakes. I think this year he has been better than last year.
I think so. I think so too.
I think he's improved.
I'll say every game, man, I'm definitely impressed with several of his hits, man.
Yeah.
Like whether it's like a check down to the running back and Quincy just jacks him up and he drops the ball, or it's Quincy's got a clean shot in the gap and he lays a dude out and stuffs him for a no gain. Like, and those do something for a defense, man. They fire other players up. They make the opposing team scared. There is something to be said for those types of hits, but then sometimes Quincy comes in like a bat out of hell. He overruns it and, will miss the running back in a hole. So, there's potential there with Quincy, but, I was quite happy to see that, when they put the air cast on him, you're thinking, oh, he's done for the season. And that's sad for a variety of reasons too. I mean, imagine what Quinnen Williams is going through. He was basically there the whole time watching his brother, but I'm glad he's going to be back at some point this year. Okay, let's look at what Joe says. Our entire defensive line is overrated. Our starting 4 to 5 guys need to be our froth pieces. I'm not sure what he means by that. And we need true elite talent to run this scheme. Otherwise, it simply does not work. I think they do have pieces on the D-line. JJ is going to get better. I think Jacob Martin is going to get better as the season goes on. Carl Lawson, he's basically didn't play football for an entire year. I think he's going to get better as well. Michael Clemens, he's going to get better. I'm just going to say this, pump the brakes a little bit on Michael Clemens in terms of a pass rusher. Listen, Michael Clemens, he's a dog. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to stick around the NFL for quite a bit. I don't know if he's going to get a second contract with the Jets, but I think he's going to get a second contract somewhere. And I think he's going to be pretty solid. But when I watch him, he just doesn't have the athletic ability to be a very consistently good pass rusher, in my opinion. But I think he'd be very solid in the run game. And I think he is a guy that maybe every now and then, maybe, if you wanted to do some twists and things like that, some of the stunt game, you can maybe line him up at 3 tech, and you could even maybe as a defensive end crash him on the inside too. I think he's a valuable piece to have on your unit. But if you're expecting him, like some of you guys who are trashing Carl Lawson right now, you might be thinking, oh, just start playing Clemens over him on the edge. I'm telling you, that's not the answer. That is not the answer. Let's see. Okay, here, this is for you, Michael. Trey Grant says, big fan of the Cool Your Jets. I think he meant to say Cool Your Jets pod. And from the film on Twitter, people are open. Zach just has to hit them. Michael, do you want to talk about that? Some of these plays that Flacco missed in this Bengals game, because I mean, it's been something that we've seen most of these weeks, if we're being honest. And this is so I'm going to take shit right now. One of the reasons, probably the biggest reason I had Joe Flacco as a top 25 Jet was because, not that I ever thought like Flacco was this like football savant like Peyton Manning or like a Drew Brees, where or Tom Brady, where you couldn't fool him, and but he is a 15-year vet, and I expected him to not be checking it down as often. Which, by the way, he did check down a lot in Baltimore. But just some of these throws and decisions are just, really, really, really head scratching. You want to go maybe through a throw or two in this game where you were just like, why did he throw there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for being a fan of the podcast. But yeah, I think I totally agree with you, because I understood your justification for why you had him top 25, because I think there was an expectation that with the talent the Jets have, that he could get in here and get those guys the ball. Like, okay, he doesn't have that much physically to offer at this point, probably less than any other starter in the league, but you at least thought, from a mental standpoint, like, this guy can come in, run the offense, get the ball where it needs to be. But the first and third game, Cleveland game, he played pretty good, but Ravens and Bengals, just insane how many plays he was missing, and some of them are on the offensive line. So, the offensive line has had its issues, and there are plays that have been missed because of them, but there are plenty of plays where the pocket is clean and he has time and receivers are open and he's just not getting the ball where it needs to go. And the Bengals game, he just truly got rattled. There was one play where the Bengals, showed an aggressive look. I think they had 7 guys on the line. Then they dropped it out. They had an overloaded 4-man rush to the left side, and one guy did get in unblocked, but Flacco had plenty of time to stand there and read the field. Garrett Wilson was wide open on a post on the left side, toasted his guy. Corey Davis was open on a dig, and Flacco just throws it out the back of the end zone. There's just too many plays like that. Yeah, so I definitely expected him to cash in on some more of these opportunities. But it is exciting, though, because you look at the tape and you just see how often Garrett Wilson, especially Garrett Wilson, but also Elijah Moore, who's been open a lot more than people realize, they are open a lot. And if Zach Wilson can hit even, just 50% more than Flacco was hitting, then the offense could really take a step. Easier said than done. We'll see where Zach Wilson is this year, but the chances are there. The Jets have receivers who create opportunities to a level that they just have not had even close to in recent years. Right now, Garrett Wilson is on fire with the route running. And I think same goes for, not to the same level, but Elijah Moore has been separating well too. There are a lot of plays out there that were left on the field because of Flacco.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, it's hard to really kind of explain what he does. And I think that the way that he, the way that he breaks, the way that he sets up breaks, he just confuses defensive backs. I don't think they're used to seeing a receiver move like that. And by the way, so Garrett Wilson said that Stevie Johnson was one of the receivers that he modeled his game after when he was growing up. And you told me at the top of this show that 2011 was, your first season following the Jets every game. We remember what Stevie Johnson did to Darrelle Revis at MetLife Stadium that year, right? 70 something yards, Revis
I
man
was at
covering
that
him all
game. Yeah, it
game.
was one of the first
You were at,
games I went to. Yeah.
yeah. And so my brother's a Buffalo Bills fan. He was a huge fan of Stevie Johnson. He always used to rub that in my face. Oh yeah, greatest corner. Stevie Johnson's the 7th rounder. Blah 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 blah. But yeah. So Stevie Johnson. The thing about him is like, and Revis being as technically a son of a guy is. I don't think Revis was used to seeing a guy who kind of releases and can contort his body. And like Stevie Johnson doesn't have the athletic ability that Garrett Wilson does. Like he can't elevate the way that Garrett Wilson does. He doesn't have the deep speed that Garrett Wilson does. He doesn't have the quickness. But some guys like so Stevie Johnson, the way that he could move his lower body, but then move his upper body in a different direction. Garrett Wilson has some of that. And I think that some of these defensive backs, they're just so confused. Like, which way is he going? He's really good at throwing head fakes and things like that. But yeah, he's definitely exceeded my expectations. I would say by a pretty decent margin. I had him as 17 in my top 25 that we did just a couple weeks ago. Where did you have him on yours, Garrett Wilson?
I think I had him somewhere in the 20s, but no, he soared well beyond my expectations. This is like what I thought the ceiling version of him would be, but I thought it would at least take until next year. Like when I sort of kind of sorting out how I thought the targets would be distributed, the catches, the yards, and all that, I kind of thought that he would be buried a little bit this year, and they would rely on Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Conklin, but he's just instantly been the peak of what I thought he was going to be, and it is very exciting to watch. And he's, as much as I love Elijah Moore, he's, I think, already kind of soaring beyond the ceiling that I thought Moore had, and that's not even to say that Moore is playing any worse than he was last year, because like I said, I think the separation is there and he's just not getting hit. But Wilson has just been on a completely different level. I actually pulled up some of those plays that we were talking about where he was missed. So I'm going to get that, the one where Flacco threw it out the back of the end zone. I'm going to pull that one up real quick. Yeah, like it's shocking how good his numbers are right now with all these plays that he's being missed on.
And
I'm gonna try to pull it up.
So and one thing I was saying, like, so we've been talking for a couple of weeks now about how much of a dog he is and how competitive he is, and this is something I did not know about him, like when I was scouting him, because it's kind of something you almost got to see like in person, and you almost got to kind of hear the audio of the games and almost kind of see the close-ups on the sideline and things like this. But yeah, that his competitive spirit's on another level. You kind of see it when the Jets recovered that onside kick. The fact that he came back into this game, how many players, receivers, they're known to be divas. How many of them they take a hard hit like that from Jesse Bates and, maybe they come back next week, right? They don't come back this week. And even if they do come back, are they still going to take more routes over the middle like that? All right. Do you got the play ready?
It's not working for some reason. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, though. He's such a dog, too. Like, you mentioned that twice now he's taken a huge hit and left the game, and he's come back. And just the way, like, he makes a catch on the sideline and he's just talking smack to the other team, the way he celebrates after touchdown, just the movement in his body and the energy it's on another level.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to like there, man. He's already a fan favorite of the Jets. And, when you start to think of like guys, Nick Mangold was just inducted into the Ring of Honor. And it's like, of course, there's so much that can happen. Fans love Jamal Adams and stuff. Hopefully nothing like that. But like, you want to talk about like long-term household name as a Jets fan, Garrett Wilson's starting to look like he could be one of them. And in terms of Elijah, I'm starting to question some of the ways that they're using him and stuff. I feel like Awuzie did a pretty solid job on him overall, but Elijah still had his fair share of plays where he was solid on. But I still want to see more of him because honestly, I had him as the number 1 ranked Jet. I did expect to see a little bit more from him to this point, but again, that doesn't mean that he's playing bad or whatever. But I do expect to see a little bit more from him. What do you think about what Swolesy says? Can we play more man coverage, please? With a big emphasis on please.
I think my thing about that, and I know a lot of people have been wanting the Jets to blitz more to, get the pressure out, but I think the Bengals kind of showed why that's risky for this team right now. When you have safeties who are playing this way, I think, the Jets do with the cornerbacks now to play more man coverage with the way Sauce and Reed are playing, and also Carter II as well. But I think, the risk you run is there's not as much of a safety blanket. So if you have guys like Whitehead and Joyner doing what they're doing, it kind of increases the risk of, having those blitzing plays, man coverage plays. So I think there's some risk to it. The Jets really just need to get that 4-man rush going. I think that's the main thing.
I would like to see a little bit more man, especially, dude, I want to see more Sauce Gardner and man, maybe even trailing certain players. Dude, okay. So he had a couple nice pass breakups. He had one nice one on T. Higgins, and he had the one really impressive one on Chase, specifically highlighting the one with Chase. I mean, Chase is getting a running start there, and, Sauce is able to, catch up with him and deflect the ball, locate it at the right moment. All that was nice. The one with T. Higgins, you see Sauce's long arms. Like, if Sauce doesn't have those long arms, he's not breaking that ball up. And by the way, T. Higgins, he's another player who, the more I watch of him, I'm like, because I watched a couple of his college games, I was like, yeah, I don't like this player. Like, he's really exceeded my expectations. He's a pretty damn good player. But I mean, what really makes Sauce special is his ability to get in the guy's face at the line of scrimmage, use those long arms, jam a guy quickly, and the risk that you run with jamming someone is, well, if you miss or you don't make good contact, that guy can get a good step on you. Well, what makes Sauce special is he has the recovery speed that so many long corners don't have, including Richard Sherman, right? Like, and this is one of the reasons why Richard Sherman would even say that, Sauce is, more ahead at this stage than Sherman was coming out. But when you're playing Sauce off as much, and not that they're playing him off a ton, but playing him in zone as much, you're not utilizing his skill set as much as possible. And if we're being honest, I had him number 2 on my top 25 list, and I said that I think that he's going to be the best defensive player on the Jets this year. And to this point, Michael, would you say that Sauce is potentially the best Jets defensive player through 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's between him, Reed, and Quinnen. I think he has an argument.
Okay.
I'd maybe go
and I wouldn't put him over those 3 players as of yet, but when I'm starting to think about okay, by the end of the season, this kid's only going to get better. He's a rookie versus the other guys are veterans. He might be better at those points, but for 3 weeks, you got to put them over him. So, I mean, I feel like the defense should, run through him. So I don't know. I would like to see more man coverage, Swolesy. Michael, were you going to say more? Was I rude and cut you off?
No. I think there's an argument he's been the best. I think any of those 3 guys have a good. I think his peak plays have been the best. Like the 2 breakups he's had on Chase and Andrews are. How many Jets corners have been able to make plays like that since Revis? Probably none. So the peak moments have been great. And then even in addition to that, it's just you watch him on a snap to snap basis, how consistent he is with his coverage, especially in zone. Like his awareness when he's in zone, just passing things off, picking up other guys is so good. He just sees things before they happen and is always right where it needs to be. Very good player already.
Yeah, and he just loves football, man. And we're talking about dogs like Garrett Wilson. They got to their first 2 picks, man. They picked 2 dogs in the top 10. And those are the guys you got to pick in the 10 and top 10. But hopefully the Jets won't be picking top 10 this year. We can only hope. All right. So Dave Echeverry says, Michael, you disagreed with me a few weeks ago when I said Fant was overrated, and that's okay. So you will love this. Berrios is the most overrated wide receiver in the league. Ruckert's blocking ability is very underrated. Your comments, Michael.
Well, I mean, I guess with Fant at this point, my counter argument is at this point we can, we sort of have the excuse, I guess you could say, that he was playing injured, which it seemed like he was because he was always on the injury report. He was been getting rest days for months now. And I think you watch his film and he clearly seemed like he wasn't quite as athletic as he was last year. So for now, I would say, let's see what he does when he comes back healthy, presuming that he'd be healthy and that he comes back. But I think his play this year could be explained by the dealing with the knee injury, which is unfortunate. But, I would say let's see what he can do. I think it's a good move for them to put him on IR, give him some rest, because it really seems like he was kind of fighting through that and wasn't 100%, and it was hurting the team as well because he was playing really badly. So we'll see what happens with him. But Barrios, I mean, I know on Cool Your Jets sometimes Ben kind of, criticized me a little bit for me being overcritical of Barrios. I don't think he's the most overrated player or wide receiver in the league. I think he brings a lot in terms of the jet motion and the gadget plays and stuff, which the Jets can tap into a little bit more, I think. But in terms of pure wide receiver, I think he might have a case for being one of the more overrated players because he really doesn't separate.
As a pure wide receiver, he's definitely overrated for sure.
Yeah, he doesn't separate as much as you would like a player in that role to be able to. He doesn't obviously offer a ton of catch radius or anything. He drops even when the
balls, the balls do hit him in the hand, they drop. I mean,
he's not the best wide receiver. I think you sign him for the returning and the offensive.
He is good on scramble drills.
Kind of stuff. Yeah,
he is good on scramble drills. And one of the things you like about Zach Wilson's ability is, he can improvise and make things happen. So, and obviously they're really good friends too. So I have to think that that's part of the reason that the Jets made an effort to re-sign him, in addition to, the gadget plays, and obviously mostly the biggest reason they re-signed him, returning ability. Joe Grana, or I don't know if it's Grana, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. He says, our offensive line is already dedicated, or he says dedicated. I think he means to say decimated with injury. Our run game is terrible. Our fantastic young backs break tackles in the backfield every time they attempt to, I think he means run the ball. Tomlinson is a huge disappointment. Michael, Tomlinson, huge disappointment. We all agree with that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Stealing money from the Jets at this point?
Right now, he's stealing money. I think the first game was horrendous. Cleveland game bounced back a little bit. Would say he was maybe below average to average. Then Bengals game kind of back down. You mentioned DJ Reader before and the problems he caused. Tomlinson was the main victim of that. So right now it's really not looking good. I would say outside of Becton's injury and Fant and Brown, and outside of the tackle injuries, the main reason the O-line hasn't been as advertised is Tomlinson being well below what we expected. And I think, like you and Joe mentioned, maybe he was a little overrated prior to the season, but that was just in the sense that he's not a star. He's more like a good above average, maybe top 10 to 12-ish kind of left guard rather than top 5. But right now he's not even close to that. He's definitely near the bottom. So he really needs to step it up.
Yeah, he's a liability right now. But
yeah.
Hopefully a veteran, he can turn that around, hopefully.
I can actually bring up those Garrett Wilson plays now if you want.
Oh, yeah, by all means.
All right, let's do it. All right, so let's take a look at the...
All right, here we go. So I added it.
If I go full screen on this, can you see that? Still see it?
I can see everything, yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, he's on the bottom here. This is a frustrating one to rewatch.
Yeah, you see this one right here, he needs to go to Davis there.
Yeah, more so Davis than Wilson, I think. Still, though, like the route by Wilson is good, just the way he's able to threaten outside and get back in. But I think Davis was the throw there.
And listen, I mean, Joe Flacco should have no trouble hitting that throw at all, but he's
this was another one that I liked in this off the seam here from the slot. Here he is on the left side. This was a good one, just the way he pulls the safety in, gets back up the field. Flacco misses.
Yep.
Yeah, so there are a lot, as many plays as he's made, there are a lot more that have been left out there, which is exciting to think about.
Yeah. But we got some young talent to be happy and impressed with. Let's see. Joe Hassel says, what city in Italy is Joe in right now? Do you know what city he's in right at the moment? Because I don't.
Not right now, no.
Yeah, I think Joe's taking a little bit of a distance from us right now. All right, so I think we're kind of caught up in the chat. I'm obviously not showing everything in the chat. something if I see if it's basically can start a conversation. If it's like a new point, I'll bring it up. So right now, Michael, if you have to go, by all means, I'm not here to hold you up.
I actually think I'm good to go. So as long as you can go, I'm here.
Okay, cool. So let me try to pull up the Our Lads Steelers depth chart. Even though typically this is something we would do at the very, very end of the stream, we might as well do it now, being that where we are in the chat. And in case you have to go before I do, get it out of the way.
That the 4th and 5 play. Do you remember that? Or Flacco took the shot to Elijah Moore.
You got it up?
Yeah, I got that one.
All right,
that was one.
Yeah, pull it up.
A lot of people are talking play call, but Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin are wide open on this one. So I'll grab that one.
Yeah. This is good to know because I don't really screen grab a ton of plays or whatever, but I was always wondering if I would be able to put it in here, being that I'm not the one controlling it, but I can see that I can now that you're doing it.
So Moore's up here. This is Garrett Wilson, and this is Conklin.
Yeah, see, all right. This is not Elijah's game. I mean, Elijah can win on a deep ball. And he did win a lot on his college tape on double moves where usually it was like a sluggo, slant and go. Man, if you watch his Vanderbilt of his junior year, he is cooking defensive backs. But the thing about Elijah is he's listed at 5'10". I really don't think he's 5'10". And what is his vertical? I mean, it can't be great. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's not his game right there. Winning jump balls. Yeah. Can he beat a guy? Like he has good speed. He has good deep speed. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill deep speed. So some of the ways that he will create separation is with like a little stutter, like on a slant. He's going to sell that in break so much that will get defensive backs to bite. But if the defensive back's even with him, you don't want to throw the jump ball. He's not T. Higgins that he's going to go up and get that. So, yeah.
That's not really his game. And I think he was kind of made to look a little worse, when you're watching live because he got a lot of targets on those plays. And, that's not really where you want him to be working because jump ball situation, 5'8" receiver, not the best catch radius. And granted, I think, he is capable of separating more than he did on that particular play and a couple more other deep balls he had in this game. I think he could separate more than that. So you mentioned Awuzie. He was mostly covering him on those plays, and he did have pretty good coverage on the deep plays. But there were quite a few short to intermediate plays where he was open and didn't get the ball. So I think he's playing better right now than people realize in terms of separation. But the deep ball's not really his game.
His best route that I think he ran all game was that catch that he had when the broadcast went out. You know what play I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. I think I rewatched it.
Yeah. So, for those of you, I'm assuming a good amount of you guys didn't even see the play because it was when the CBS broadcast went out. I didn't see it until I watched it today. Actually, that was the first time I saw it. That was probably his best route of the game. But yeah, I mean, like his routes are still really crisp. He is getting separation stuff, but I mean, listen, throwing him deep jump balls is not his game. Mike, I did see some other people saying I genuinely wonder if Michael LaFleur knows how to use him properly, and that's a question that I have too. But it is early in the season, and both of these guys I think are chess pieces that you can move around and use in a variety of ways. And they are young, and they're going to grow together. And hopefully, this coaching staff will figure out how to use the both of them properly. Nice comment from Dave. He says, quote, "I really enjoyed the two of you. Outstanding work from football minds, not cheerleaders."
Thanks. Thank you.
Very nice. All right.
Also, I got that play you're just talking about. Yeah,
put it in.
Nice.
Put it in. Let's pull it up.
Alrighty.
While you put that in, Daniel C says Tomlinson is awful. Start Herbig. I think that's a joke. I hope that's a joke.
All right, here it's up top, right here.
Yeah, this is it. What kind of dog do you have, Michael?
Look at
that right there.
Yeah,
that's the
Elijah
right
Moore. It's a dog I have.
Is that really? Yeah. So look at this. So, I mean, he's turning the defensive back. I mean, he really threatens to the outside, seamlessly cuts inside. And one of the things I loved about Elijah Moore is the way that he snags balls with his hands. And look at that right there. Goes up and snags it with his hand. That's a good damn route right there. And that's against Eli Apple, who apparently he talks a lot of shit because a lot of wide receivers do not like him.
He's a Chihuahua Jack Russell mix, by the way.
Chihuahua Jack Russell mix. Okay. I don't know if I've ever said this on the stream before, but I always grew up around beagles. My parents actually breed beagles.
I had one when I was growing up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, they're nice dogs. I mean, they bark a lot, but they're cool. Okay. Let's see. Can we have Flacco for the short stuff, Zach for the long stuff? Yeah. What is this? A college offense? It doesn't work like that in the NFL. I think that's a joke, though.
Some of his throws, I don't think I'd even want him throwing those.
Yeah, good point. The thing about I mean, I did say after our first game that, you know, like when they in Baltimore, they ran a lot of like like they would run some orbit motion things, and then they would like throw the bubble screen to Braxton Berrios. And, you know, Flacco did a pretty good job, like hitting him in stride. Zach struggled a lot on those types of throws his rookie year. You know, if he really cleans that aspect of his game up, because the way that, you know, he throws pump fakes and things like that, and just like think about everyone like to put up the Twitter clip when Zach Wilson had like that underhand shovel pass for a touchdown when he was at BYU. If Zach really gets that aspect of his game going, if he gets really comfortable, you know, teams when they bite on like play action and the shorter stuff, that's going to open up the longer stuff. And then Zach, he does have a cannon, man. Like his deep ball is good. It sets up that deeper stuff too. But if teams are laughing at you that you can't even complete a little bubble screen, you know, that you have to make them respect that stuff first before they're going to, you know, respect the deep stuff. So if he can figure out those little aspects of his game, the bigger stuff's going to open up too. Let's see. Swolesy says Kyle as a D-line expert, besides the obvious, I'm no D-line expert, but you know, I try. Besides the obvious moves of getting Huff in the lineup, what would you say is something that you'd like to see improve pressure and improve pressure consistency? Okay, so Michael, you can help me think through this one too. Other than putting Bryce Huff in the lineup, how can the Jets create pressure? And I think we're both going to agree that the answer is not necessarily blitzing more, because we've seen, and by the way, one of Michael's articles that I was reading earlier, you highlighted when they blitz Burrow, he was like, 7 for 10 with 120 something yards, touchdown, no interceptions. Was it 2 touchdowns? Or at least 1 touchdown, no interceptions. I mean, like the passer rating was really good. So yeah, the numbers didn't look good with the blitz. And part of the thing is like, okay, you trust your corners, DJ Reed and Sauce, like if you're going to blitz, but the safeties. Yeah. And then who is blitzing, right? Like, okay, Whitehead, like he has blitz potential, no doubt. Quincy, he's got blitz potential, but he's not playing this week. CJ Mosley, not a good blitzer. So who are you going to even blitz? So in terms of, they got to activate Huff, play Quinnen Williams more, right? Nathan Shepard's not the answer. I would say, you know, JFM on the inside more too. You know, we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. Sheldon Rankins does flash a little bit too. Oh, Michael dropped off again. I hope it wasn't the internet again. In terms of what else could they do? I think the biggest thing that they're not doing more is more JFM as a 3 technique. That's where he's best. You know, he's got a good amount of quickness that so first of all, he's strong enough. He's strong enough that, you know, he can get through a 300-pound offensive lineman, but then he's a good deal quicker than them too. But he's not fast enough that he can win with that much closing distance from the edge. So putting him out there, can he collapse a pocket? Sure, but he's not giving you a lot in terms of variety of pass rush moves. You know, we were talking before about how Myles Garrett can dip and bend around. You're not going to you're not going to see that from JFM. You're not going to see a spin move from JFM. That's not his game. He's very limited in that area. So, yeah. Let's see. It looks like Flacco underthrew him. No, I'm not sure which play he'd be talking about. Why hasn't Mike White been cut now that Zach is back? We could easily add Tanzel Smart or Hamza to the active instead of 3 quarterbacks. Yeah, I don't understand why Mike White is still on the roster. I don't know that he'll be there for that much longer, but yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. You're certainly not going to suit up 3 on game day. So what is the point? Let's see. Davis won his route on that play. Okay, here's an interesting question. Dat Boy with the SpongeBob picture. Why did the Jets play Elijah Moore on the outside? Because he can play on the outside. That's one of the reasons why Elijah Moore is good, and that's one of the reasons why he probably should have been a first-round pick, and he was a very early second-round pick, is he is small. There's no doubt about it. He's, 180-something pounds. He's listed at 5'10", 178, I believe. But he has good deep speed. All right, and he's got, really, really, really shifty feet. He has great ball skills. So while he's short and he doesn't necessarily jump out of the gym, that's why you didn't see him really win some of those jump balls. But I mean, what are some of the routes that he's won on? Can he win on out routes? Yeah, he's probably caught most of his a lot of his good chunks yards that he's gained has been from, running out routes this year. If you're going to ask him to run a deep dig, can he do that? Yeah. Watch his college film. You're going to see him run a lot of, deep digs, basically, for those that might not be familiar with the terminology, it's basically like a 90-degree cut to the inside. He goes up and he snags balls with his hands. And one of the things that I loved most about his tape is that he really it's like a seamless transition from catch to run. He catches the ball, hands, tucks it, and runs. So, if he's catching a ball over the middle of the field, if a safety's not there to, hit him quickly, he's going to get a lot of yak. And I mean, think about what Tyreek Hill did in the game that I went to, the playoff game last year. Tyreek Hill, I forget the exact route, but it was some type of in cut against the Bills. And it was late in the game. He takes it to the house, right? Now, I'm not saying that Elijah Moore has necessarily that type of game-breaking speed. He doesn't. But, when you're talking about running in cuts, you're doing that from the outside. Elijah Moore has that type of ability. You draft a guy that high because he's versatile. You can put him anywhere you want. And part of the game about football is making it a guessing game, so that the defense doesn't know what you're doing. Okay. Tyreek Hill is also built like a fire hydrant, so that helps him out a lot. Yeah, he's pretty swole for sure. And he's a workout warrior too. So, I was really upset when the Jets missed out on Tyreek Hill. And I did have a tweet about this. Garrett Wilson is probably going to be the smarter thing. I mean, just what we've seen from him from 3 weeks, you have to be happier that the Jets ended up going that route, because just based off of contract. Oh, there he is. Let me put him back in.
All right.
There you go. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Oh, that's me. My internet went out. My bad. Okay.
Oh, no, all good. So someone was asking why do we play Elijah Moore on the outside? I was going through that. And then I started getting into Tyreek Hill. I was quite upset when the Jets, I didn't really get a chance to really express how much I was upset by that on the stream, because, Blewett's always going a million miles a minute and stuff. And I think it was kind of traumatic for Blewett. He didn't even really want to talk about the what ifs and stuff, being that the news had already happened. But man, when I saw that we were in contention to get Tyreek Hill, and I've watched so much Chiefs games over the years, being that my dad's a Chiefs fan, Tyreek Hill is a really, really, really special player. But I have to be honest, I was a little sick for a while, knowing that we missed out on that and that he went to the Dolphins. But seeing what we've seen from Garrett Wilson for the first 3 weeks, I'm not so upset anymore. Because
no, I agree. Were you like paying attention to it while it was happening, like when it like during that hour and a half,
Yes,
whatever it
yes.
was.
I'll tell you why, because
Yeah,
I was
I
at
was like,
I
I
was
remember
at
seeing the
work.
tweet come up. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then right after that, the next one comes up and it's like Jets and Dolphins. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
And then it
dude.
was just like I couldn't focus on it. I'm glad it ended quickly because I could not focus on anything else
I
in my
swear, yeah,
life.
me neither. And I've been pretty good over the years about blocking out, like, sports news and things like that, and like not letting it control my life as it once did. But when I saw that, I at the time I was at work, I remember we had some like standardized testing thing that day, and I was like a hall monitor, so I was doing nothing. Like I literally like didn't have anything to do. Like there's all these kids in the rooms testing, and I'm just like sitting in the hallway, and I was on my phone, and I saw that news. I was like, holy shit! And I kept refreshing my phone every couple seconds, and once I saw that, I was like, figures. It figures. But in terms of long-term prospects, Garrett Wilson, when you factor in contract, I mean, we're talking about, we got this guy for at least 4 years on a rookie deal. And is Tyreek Hill even going to be good for 4 more years? Probably not nearly as good as he is now. So, I think that the Jets probably ended up getting what's best.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I was throughout the offseason, I was in the camp of, the Jets have to get a veteran receiver because, you just look at the odds of what a rookie receiver is going to be, and he's most likely not going to be Tyreek Hill. He's not going to be Deebo Samuel, but Garrett Wilson is looking like one of those top 10% kind of guys who is as good as one of those players right away. And you get the benefit of the contract, like you said, and the youth to potentially have him for not just 4 years, but 7, 8, 9, 10. So if Garrett Wilson really is one of those, top of the line kind of rookies who's that good right away, those Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase kind of guys, which it is starting to really look like he is, then the Jets could possibly end up coming out on the right side of not getting those players in terms of the long-term outlook.
Yeah. Michael, I'm going to turn to you for this one. Swolsey says, where's the 12 personnel? We have 2 legit tight ends. What the fuck is going on? And so, Michael, they've definitely been running some 12 personnel, probably not to the degree that I thought, but do you happen to know the numbers?
I
And
think I'm going to try
just
to
so
pull it up
everyone
right now.
knows,
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
sometimes we'll be like, oh, well, Joe's a film guy, Michael's a stats guy. Michael's a stats guy for sure, but Michael is a film guy too. Like, don't get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. Hence, he just was able to pull up all these plays and stuff and, recite them off the top of his head.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm trying to pull up the numbers, but in terms of the outlook, it's an interesting discussion because, as much as they, built the roster to do that by signing Uzama Conklin, you look at the talent and the way that Uzama's playing versus, Davis, Moore, Garrett Wilson, it feels like it dictates you should be playing more 11 personnel, but they also paid for those 2 tight ends. So, and it's, more conducive to what they want to do with running the ball. So it is interesting. But I did get the numbers here. Right now they're at 20% with 12 personnel, which puts them, where is this? This is 1, 2. I'm counting the ranks because it doesn't show the numbers. So just talk for a second and I'm going to count where that ranks.
All right. So Daniel C said, I'm not joking. Herbig is better. So apparently
18th.
he was being.
So they're 18th in 12 personnel at 20%. 11 personnel is at 61%, which is equal to the league average. And the league average for 12 is 21. So right now they're basically league average in terms of the way they use both of those. So
no, we figured that they'd probably be above average, being that they invested the amount of money that they did and a 3rd round draft pick as well. So once they get the running game going more, and once they start actually building leads in games, and then they can sit and run the ball more, you're going to see, I think, those numbers go up, and they're probably going to be above league average. But just when you're down as much as they've been down, and you do have 3 wide receivers that they have, it doesn't make sense to be in 12 personnel. So I think you're going to see more of it.
Yeah, that's definitely right, because you look at the league average for what teams do out of 12 personnel, it's 45% pass, 55% run. So it's a running package, and the Jets are passing more than anyone else right now because, like we said earlier, they have not run an offensive play while leading. So it's it hasn't really been a good environment to be using it. So I think we're going to see more of it as the season goes on, for sure.
Okay. Michael, do you want to look at the Steelers roster now and then make some
Yeah, let's do
predictions
it.
about the game? Okay, cool. So let's see. Hopefully I do this right. All right. Share. This is first time doing this, guys. So if I'm doing it bad, then let's see. Chrome tab.
Yeah, what I did is share screen and then
I think
Chrome tab, yeah.
I got it. All right. So
All right.
Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is according to our lads. All right. So wide receivers, they got Deontay Johnson, who Joe Blewett is pretty high on. George Pickens, who was everyone's preseason darling. Chase Claypool, who is one of the more overrated wide receivers in the league, in my opinion. And then a bunch of other guys who I could care less about. Gunnar Olszewski was like a returner for the Patriots for a long time. Okay. You were talking about Dan Moore, who was a 4th-round pick in the previous draft, and you were saying that his numbers are pretty good this year. Is that not correct, Michael?
Yeah, at least numbers wise, it seems like he has had a really good year. And I was one thing I do a lot is instead of just looking at the numbers, I'll kind of like search on Twitter and see what people who are following the team are saying about a guy. Because just kind of verify it with other people's opinions. And looking at how people are talking about him, it does seem like he's having a nice year in pass protection. It seems like run game has been a rough year for him, and the Steelers are not running the ball well right now. Najee Harris is at 3.2 yards per carry, I think, but pass game, Dan Moore only has 2 pressures allowed this season, and he played Myles Garrett last week, and I saw a bunch of clips of him going toe-to-toe with Garrett, so definitely he'll be a challenge for Carl Lawson, I think.
Very interesting. Was not expecting that, but hey, listen, I always love a good matchup. And then they got another 4th-rounder from the previous draft, 2020 draft, Kevin Dotson at left guard. I can't say I know anything about him.
I mean, I've been looking at like doing some research on this O-line, and it's interesting. I feel like they have a bad reputation, but I saw a lot of good stuff going their way in terms of the pass blocking numbers are pretty decent. And then the run blocking, like I was looking at the run game, and I just mentioned Harris, not having a great start to the season. It seems like that's kind of more on him than the O-line, which isn't something you see a lot. But in most of the run blocking numbers I looked at, they're pretty league average. But then Harris individually, in terms of broken tackles and yards after contact and things like that, he's very close to the bottom. So it's definitely interesting, the distribution there. So I wonder if, maybe he's due for a breakout and you get to face Joyner and Whitehead in space. Maybe that'll help you finally break some tackles. So the run game will be interesting to watch.
God, I hope not. I feel like so many times throughout the years, the Jets would go against a player relatively early in the season who was struggling, and then they would have their breakout game against us. I hope that's not the case.
Did it. So.
Yeah. And by the way, I meant to say this before. Hendrickson, so we kind of all, myself included, very much so, we're like, yeah, man, why would the Bengals let Carl Lawson go and sign Hendrickson instead? And
I was in that too.
But, dude, he's legit, man. He is legit. And I'm not saying, he's Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, but, he's definitely up there. And like, first of all, his motor is insane. He runs hot all the time. He's very powerful hands, but he's more athletic than he looks and that you think. So he's definitely a good player, man. And he doesn't have the injury history that Carl Lawson has. So the Bengals look like they're smart now when we really think about it like that. In terms of what you were saying about Najee, so there are some Steelers people that I respect who've been saying that he's not really seen the field that well. And I've seen a couple of the clips that they put on Twitter, and like he's missing wide open holes and things like that. So that is an interesting development. I don't know why, but Najee is a very talented player. That is for sure. I really did like his tape coming out of college. Part of you wonders, like, did they wear him down? Because they ran him so much last year, but I don't really think that's the case. So hopefully this is not the week where he really turns it up. Pat Freiermuth, he seems to be one of the better young tight ends in the league. The Steelers fans seem to love him. They already got the Muth chant going. By the way, we need to hear some more Brees chants going. We got to give him a reason to say it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, gotta give him a reason, but
Gotta give him a reason.
I was getting involved in week one. There were some small little breakouts. I think, and they did put it on the video board. They encourage you to do it. So
Oh,
once he
really?
has some
I
big
did not notice
plays,
that.
yeah, they were putting up. It says Brees. So once he has some big plays, I think it'll break out a little bit.
Mitch Trubisky, are the numbers as bad as we think, Michael? Because every time I watch this guy, he's terrible.
No, yeah,
I feel like I did see some of those next gen stats where they kind of like put like the passing heat map, and it seems like he doesn't ever throw over the middle of the field, and he's always kind of had this struggle where he can't throw to his left, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's kind of followed him his whole career. But what are you seeing in the numbers department from Mr. Mitch Trubisky?
no, it's definitely been a rough start from him, and like you said, kind of looking at Steelers' opinions, it definitely seems like they're very low on the way he's played so far. But right now, he's last in yards per attempt out of qualified quarterbacks, 5.5. So for perspective, Flacco's at 5.8. So even worse than Flacco's been so far. So rough start for him. But like you just said, and we talked about Hendrickson, seems like sometimes players have these breakout games against the Jets when they have no business doing so. Even Jacoby Brissett a couple weeks ago, very rough game against the Panthers in the season opener, but then plays the Jets and he looks like a top-notch quarterback. So as long as they can create pressure, I think they should be able to get through this game without Trubisky exceeding expectations too much.
The only way Trubisky does anything against the Jets is if the Jets get pressure on him and they do not bring him down. The Jets have struggled with that, not bringing guys down. I mean, Jacoby Brissett, he had several big extended plays against us. Think about that one play that he had to the tight end where he breaks out of the pocket, then he's looking to run, and then at the last moment, I can't remember which corner it was, comes up to make or it might have been Whitehead, comes up to make the tackle, and then he throws it right before he passes the line of scrimmage to the tight end who gets like 25, 30 yards on the play, and there were several plays where Jacoby Brissett, he's spinning out of sacks. Obviously Lamar had some escapes, he had that 1/3 and long. And then last week, Joe Burrow, right? The first touchdown of the game, he's extending the play. So Trubisky, as much as he's not good at throwing the ball, he does have athletic ability. I mean, like he's a 4.5 guy. He's like 4.5 guy. So I think that, listen, these Steelers receivers are pretty good, but I think the Jets corners are pretty good too when you look at the top three corners. So I feel like they can hold their own with the Steelers receivers, but no coverage is perfect and meant to hold on forever. So, if we're talking about extended plays, I feel like that's really the only way Mitch Trubisky is really going to hurt us, in my opinion. So key to the game is not letting a scrub, do something that he's actually comfortable with. In terms of the defensive line, Ogunjobi. So we were talking about signing him. How's he been with Pittsburgh?
So far, it's kind of been a quiet start for him. And we were talking earlier a little bit about this D-line. And, since Watt went out, it has been not making a lot of noise. I think, we talked about Highsmith and Hayward. They're both on the right side. So McDermott's going to get Highsmith on the edge, and then Tomlinson will mostly get Hayward at left guard. So that's not neither of those matchups are too exciting. But right side, I think Ogunjobi hasn't done too much. I think their other edge rusher is Malik Reed. He hasn't done too much. So those guys have been quiet. And I think Mitchell and Vera Tucker have a chance to be pretty clean in this game in pass protection. So they might need that with a couple of mismatches on that left side. But Tomlinson is the big one because you expect that McDermott's going to struggle, and, they'll most likely try to find ways to help him out. But Tomlinson against Hayward, not a lot you could do to, give extra help to a guard. So he's got to hold up in that one.
Okay. Tyson Alualu. It's funny to think that he was a first-round pick way back when. He's still in the league kicking. Devin Bush. So 2019 draft first-round pick. He kind of really hasn't lived up to expectations. I mean, both the Devins who were drafted early, and Devin White down in Tampa Bay, they kind of both haven't lived up to expectations, even though they both are kind of like really uber athletic. Am I right about that? I don't think the numbers are too good in his favor, right? Bush?
Yeah, that's kind of the story. I mean, they're athletic, make plenty of highlights, but pretty much every year, Bush and Devin White, since you brought him up as well, they both kind of, it seems like, by traditional stats that they're playing pretty well, but then like their coverage numbers and run defense, missed tackles, things like that, kind of put them down the leaderboard in some of the more advanced numbers. So, and it looks like Bush is having another pretty shaky start, especially in coverage. So we'll see what happens. I think I'm still waiting for Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzama to have their real breakout game. I know Conklin put up good numbers last game, but like I'm looking for them to be a consistent part of just moving the chains, making key catches. So, maybe against Bush this week, it's an opportunity for them.
Probably Conklin's best play didn't even fucking count, man. That catch against Cleveland, that was such a catch. I'm still pissed at the refs for that. But yeah, a lot of Conklin stuff has been like, okay, we're using him as an inline blocking tight end. He's chipping, and then he gets out to the flat as a check down. Like that's been a lot of what we've seen from Conklin, as opposed to, okay, he's in line, let him run up to the linebacker or the safety and hit him with a rocker step, and then get open over the middle. And he's not much of a yak guy, but okay. But we haven't seen as much of that, and we want to start seeing more of that. Miles Jack, dude, I was such a Miles Jack fan coming out of college, man. He was the player I wanted, who I thought might slide.
I wanted him.
Yeah. Oh, dude, definitely over Darren Lee. But we got Darren Lee, and the rest is history. Dude, their secondary, man. So I was looking at their secondary. Outside of Minka, I'm not impressed by anyone. Is there anyone else that like the numbers are good?
No, I mean, I agree. I think it's a unit they could beat, and the Jets receivers are obviously playing pretty well so far. But this is a group you can get for sure. Arthur Millette is their slot guy right now. Jets fans remember him, but it's not the best cornerback group.
Arthur Millette, he was better. Right now, he's better than Bless Austin, definitely.
That's true. I mean, look, Millette's still out there getting playing time. I'm pretty sure Austin isn't. But I mean, Witherspoon, he's given up 185 on 19 targets, 2 touchdowns. Cameron Sutton, 174 on 22 with the touchdown. So also Terrell Edmonds at safety, who's actually a guy that I kind of wanted the Jets to pursue in free agency. He's given up a couple touchdowns. So the secondary in Pittsburgh is outside of, Fitzpatrick maybe being the best safety in the league, or at least up there. There are some guys you could take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that the Jets receivers should have a field day against these corners, man. Levi Wallace, I mean, he was, so many Bills fans wanted to run him out of Buffalo. I could tell you that because I've watched a ton of Bills games over the years, been around Bills fans. They weren't so high on him. So again, can the pass protection hold up in order to give enough time to get some of our receivers open, and Zach gets a couple downfield looks? I mean, listen, Minka's a safety, and safeties are valuable, but who's the lockdown corner here? So anyway, Michael, give me a score prediction. Who wins this game, by how much, and why are they winning?
So I said they would lose the first 2 games. Then I predicted this is ahead of not preseason schedule prediction, the week ahead. So I did predict losses the first 2. I thought they were going to win last week. So I did expect 1 and 2, I guess. Although I'm flipped the last 2 weeks. But this one, I feel, looking at historically, playing at Pittsburgh, the way the Jets offensive line is playing does not feel like a game they should win. But looking at it, the roster, it feels like, in the way that this Steelers team is playing, and especially a quarterback, and with no TJ Watt, who they're 0-6 without, it does feel like a game the Jets should win. And they have tended to do good in these quarterback return games. Zach Wilson last year against Houston, Darnold against the Cowboys in 2019, Darnold against the Bills in 2018. So there's some good, I don't know. I'm going to throw this one to you because I'm kind of leaning. Maybe you'll kind of push me to one side based on what you say.
All right. Shit. I'm going to say the Jets put up 27 points in this game. Okay. 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals. Greg the Leg keeps pounding them from deep. 27 Jets, and I'm going to say 20 Steelers.
Okay. All right, so that gives me the confidence to go through with it. I'm feeling win. I think maybe a little lower scoring than you, maybe 23-17. But I don't know. I think
You
the
know,
Jets have some
Blewett said
things
the
going
same
their
thing
way.
with me. He's like, do you think the last time we did a score prediction against the Browns, he's like, do you think that the score is going to be that high? And I was like, well, is it really that high in today's NFL? And it was a 31-30 game. So, but I hear you. So I'm sorry. I'm so rudely interrupted you, Michael. What was the final score?
What did I say? 23-17, I said. Yeah.
23-17. Okay. So I say a 7-point victory. You say a 6. All right. So that is looking at the Steelers roster. I am going to run through the chat. And before I get on out of here, Michael, if you have to go, by all means, you've been very kind and generous with your time. Let's see.
No, I can stick around a few more minutes.
Okay. So I'll probably just try to put as much on the screen as possible. Wilson's quick release will be a difference maker with this wide receiver group. Yes. Yes, it will be. And it already is. Zach had a great pump fake in one of the later games in the red zone. I got to know which one you're talking about. Is Huff dressing this week? I think if the Jets are serious about addressing the pass rush, he will. I would dress him before I would dress Bryce Hall, if we're talking about either Bryce. I feel like Hall and Carter should not get carries. I think Hall with more reps is way better than Carter. Way better. No, I mean, like Hall is still having kind of that rookie slump so far. He still had. All right. So Michael, what do you think about the drop that he had early in the game? I mean, that drop it's not a good ball from Flacco.
Oh, yeah.
I almost want to put that more on Flacco than Hall. But when I saw that in live time, and then even watching it on the rerun, like if it's a good ball and he catches that, he can go in the end zone there. But then he had another drop at a different point in the game, so he's had drops here and there. And I mostly just attribute that to, he's a rookie thinking about what he's going to do after the catch. But it's frustrating. But we have seen Brees do some nice things with the ball in his hand. He caught that one, was it an angle route? And then, he sheds off a tackle and ends up spinning for a decent amount of yardage. Brees has had his flashes. Every week he's had a flash here or there. But to say that he's much better than Michael Carter, no. Michael Carter consistently breaks tackles, man. Michael Carter can make something out of nothing, and he seems like he does it almost on every play because he hasn't been working with a lot. What do you think, Michael?
Hall, I think the hands right now is kind of concerning. He had the fumble in the first game. I think he had a drop in that one too. But yeah, the Flacco one, that's definitely one of the killers in this game. That should have been a touchdown, at least a first down. But definitely not a good ball from Flacco. I think it should have been out in front. It could have been a potential touchdown, but it was still a ball that you would like to catch. So, I think it's like one of those 50-50 situations. Like, yes, Flacco made it a lot more difficult than it had to be, but even considering that, it's still a ball you'd probably like to get the majority of the time. So, we'd definitely like to see him secure the ball better right now, both in terms of drops, any of the fumble in week 1. So, the ball security not great. I think you could see the upside for sure with the speed he's shown in some of these plays. You mentioned the angle route, so we've seen some route versatility that I don't think Carter really brings. But like you mentioned, right, in terms of Carter's elusiveness, right now, Carter is the more consistent rusher, I think, just in terms of how he's able to consistently get something out of nothing, break tackles, make guys miss. I think Hall right now is sort of figuring it out a little bit in terms of the vision, hitting the holes. But with that being said, the fact that he's still averaging 5.3 yards per carry right now, granted a small sample size, and like you said, it little inflated by a couple big plays. I think that's still promising considering, he has left some meat on the bone, but he's still been fairly productive. So you could see the upside with Hall, but I think he's still working out some rookie lumps right now.
Yeah. Did you and Joe talk about this in the stream that I couldn't make because you guys did it on a Tuesday because Joe was leaving for Italy? But so one of the ways that they like to use Brees that they don't use Michael Carter is on end arounds. They've given him end arounds several times. And I think it was a play against the Browns. Brees gets the ball and he takes it to the outside. But if he cuts up, you're potentially looking at 6 because it was blocked quite well. But we saw Brees try to get more north and south this week. I mean, I think the thing is it's like college defenses are so much more poor. I mean, one thing is just look at the hash marks. And this is anyone who knows anything about the differences between college and pro football. The hash marks are so much more wider in college. Brees, he had so many long touchdowns running up the sidelines. It's harder to do that in the NFL, right? You have less space to do that, and the defenders are faster. So Brees has to learn to get more north and south. He very well could have had a very long touchdown against Cleveland if he did that. He failed to do that, but again, it was his second game. I mean, the Jets do use Brees in some ways that they don't with Carter, like on some of the routes that they'll throw him on. But it is interesting. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So Andrew Candela says, Garrett's a great route runner, and Wilson has an accurate deep ball. I think they should do a few deep bombs early and make them respect deep, and then the short pass opportunities will be there for Zach to improve. Your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, as it pertains to this week specifically, it's interesting to think about this because, with the left tackle situation, I think early in the game, maybe it would be better, and you let me know if you think otherwise, but I think maybe it would be kind of better to ease into it and feel out that left side and see if you can manage that, if you can handle it before you get too aggressive, because there's obviously a higher sack risk when you're running those long developing plays. So I think maybe you don't want to do that too early and potentially dig yourself into a hole, get Zach Wilson hit because you can't hold up at left tackle, so
and lose confidence. And I almost feel like the Steelers game plan, I feel like they're going to be expecting a shot early. Oh, a new quarterback in here. He's got a big arm. This is how he likes to play. Watch the deep shots early, and I feel like the Steelers are almost going to be inviting the short stuff because Zach last year, he did not make teams respect his short game. So he now clearly he has the ability to be really good in that area. He's got all the tools to do that. I mean, any quarterback who, understands the game of football and can read defenses can be good in the short game. So Zach can do that, but he needs to make teams respect that first. And once they do respect that, I think the shots will open up themselves. But I think if you come out and do it, but when the team's already expecting it, you're looking at maybe taking a big sack or maybe throwing into, a look where, they got the safety hanging over the top and he's really not that open. You kind of force it in a window and maybe it's picked. And God, we don't want a Zach Wilson week 2 against the Patriots where his first couple of passes are interceptions.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about run pass balance to open up? Because I agree, they definitely need to establish the run some more, but you also don't want to get to last year there were some games where they were very run pass early and then run game wasn't working. So Zach Wilson's throwing out a 3rd and long. They get into holes and on his 3rd pass, they're down 10-0. So are you confident enough in this run game against the Steelers defense to rely on that run game early on, or do you want to sort of rely on the quick game passing?
I am a very big proponent of not getting behind in the chains. I don't like 3rd and longs. When you get into 3rd and longs, that's when you're asking yourself to get into turnover situations, because just look at the way the defenses are meant to play. When you get into 3rd and longs, you really have to throw into tight windows, and tight windows, they lead to interceptions. They lead to pass deflections. The ball's up in the air. Someone can come and pick it off. So the problem is okay, what if you run it? Let's say you run it twice, back to back, 1st and 2nd down, and you don't get shit either play, and then it's 3rd and long, which did happen sometimes for the Jets. So listen, you want to run it on 1st down? I'm fine with that. Maybe your 2nd down call isn't a run necessarily. It could be a pass, but it could be a really short pass, something where you're not necessarily looking for a 1st down, but something where you'll get at least 5 yards. I always like playing within, 3rd and manageable. That's the way I like to play. And the thing about that too is sometimes when you get in the 3rd and manageable or 3rd and short, that's when you can take your shots, because sometimes defenses are looking just to stop the 1st down and then shit opens up over the top. So let's see. Barney says, I'm dumb. Is 3-tech inside? Yeah, 3-tech is the outside shade of the guard.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Rankins is most improved D player. He's having a good year. He's been okay. He flashes, and he flashed last year too. Like, so he had a big sack against Burrow this past week. But like look at what he did week 3 last year. Like he had some really impressive plays. He had a really impressive sack against the Broncos, I believe, which was a week 3 game last year. So he flashes. But he on a consistent down to down basis. Someone said, "How's Myles Garrett doing?" Yeah, that car crash looked pretty damn bad. But he seems to be okay. I don't know about the passenger. She looked like she was in worse shape. Someone's talking about Todd Bowles. Let's see. Bowles has been overloading his bigs to one side occasionally to create pressure, and it has been effective. Todd Bowles has always been pretty good with unique looks and stuff. This is what I was thinking, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Michael. Todd Bowles, I gave him a lot of shit for his time with the Jets, and one of the things that really soured me on him was, I didn't, some of the offensive coordinators he hired and things like that. But the more that I thought about it, and like there was a lot of coverage busts, but the more I thought about it, like he was playing guys like Rontez Miles at safety. Miles at safety. Dude, Rontez Miles makes LaMarcus Joyner look good at safety. He makes Ashton Davis look not bad. I swear to God.
What is he up to? Has he played since he was on the Jets?
I haven't. I mean, he was a good special teams player. I remember I put some tweets out there with some plays of him doing special teams, and I remember him liking them. But I don't think he's in the league anymore. I haven't heard of him. But the more I was thinking about Todd Bowles, when you think about how poorly those McCagnon rosters were built, I'm starting to think maybe more of it was personnel than Bowles. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah,
not to say that he was good, but maybe he could have been a lot better if we had given him somewhat of a respectable roster.
Oh yeah, I think you don't want to be too much of a revisionist, because there were legitimate criticisms that I think still hold up. But now in hindsight a little bit, I think we could see more clearly how poor the roster was. So there is some credence to that. But there are some criticisms that still hold up for Bowles. But he was doing well as a D coordinator before the Jets. He's doing well after. I don't know. I think it's important to not get too nostalgic for Bowles, because we all didn't by the end were quite critical, but the talent had to do with it, I think, for sure.
What do you think about this? Tyreek Hill isn't Saleh culture material. Well, they certainly went for him, so it's not like he was available and the Jets had no interest. They were certainly going after him. But I don't know. What do you think about this Saleh culture thing? And did Tyreek fit into that?
I mean, it definitely was interesting, because I feel like that was the first time they had shown interest in a player who was, not completely clean and maybe had some questions off the field. So it was a little bit unique by their standards, but I also think that was kind of just because he's so talented that you kind of overlook that. So that's probably what it was. But I don't know. It didn't seem like they were going to have any reservations about adding him. And I definitely think it, I don't know. They went on and drafted Clemens, and he had some questions. So it doesn't seem like he was too far beyond. It's definitely something worth noting, but they were interested in adding him. So
they very well would have added him. I mean, they would have given up a lot to add him and certainly paid him a hell of a lot of money. So I don't buy the whole Saleh culture thing. But dude, the fans really start to be Saleh's time. It's starting to tick, because I'm seeing a lot of fans start to turn on him. So you want to talk about, getting a win and getting some of this pressure off your back, man, this is certainly a week to do it. By the way, guys, if you want to comment, I mean, there's still a good amount of people here, 115. That's a pretty good number, but I'm thinking about heading out, and I have to get to the gym. I missed several days this week that I wasn't anticipating on missing because I got sick this past weekend. Sucked. Nice 3-day weekend, and I was sick. And Michael's got to go. He's got other things to do. So please get any comments in as soon as possible, so we can get to them. Nikki Free says, Whoa, Kyle is flying solo with Nania. Sheesh. Solo? It's not solo if I'm with Nania.
Yeah.
Who is C White? C White. I don't know who that is. Everyone says that, but I think they're adjusting. Watch today's Oldbrook presser. Okay. Seems like somebody's having there's some type of argument going on. Somebody's asking, is CJ Uzama hurt? Conk has to chip for the left tackle. Yes, we should use Conklin on a lot of chipping. I mean, listen, Conklin, he's a pretty good blocker, and he can get some really good shots in, and he's good at getting a shot in, not overcommitting to it too much to the point where he can't get into his check down route pretty quickly. So they need to use him a lot to help. Also, move Corey Davis in more too, because Corey Davis can be pretty solid. Although I haven't seen any really good blocks from him this year, but in previous years. And listen, I'll say this. I love Elijah Moore. I don't really see much from Elijah Moore as a blocker, if we're being honest. Do you agree with that, Michael?
This year he stepped it up. I think this year he's had some good blocks. I've seen.
Do you have any clips from him? Do you have any clips that you could show us?
Yes, I'm gonna try to pull it up. But do you remember the Barrios run against the Browns? He had, I think, 19. It was an end around. More.
I obviously remember the run, but I'm trying to remember what Elijah did on that play.
I'm gonna try to pull it up.
I'm curious to see that. So
I do feel like I've noticed some better effort from him this year. Also, the first play of the season, the run that Carter had, Moore was out in front on that one.
Okay.
So I actually think he's kind of improved at that this year. I'm going to get that Barrios run.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm just looking at what other stuff I'm going to put up. Some people are arguing about college stats and stuff. Our offense looks pretty good on paper. Yeah, our offense does not look bad on paper. That is for darn sure.
One thing we haven't talked about, AVT. What do you think of how he's played this year?
Yeah, AVT. So I think you have to say that unquestionably he's been the best offensive lineman this year.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that stands out to me with his tape. The dude, I think the dude's got a really strong core. He's not like the strongest dude in the world, but the way that he yanks dudes sometimes and the way that he can shift the players, so I've noticed some blocks where sometimes he'll get to the second level and sometimes he'll hit a linebacker a little high, which is not good if you want to move them. But sometimes he'll hit them high, he'll get clamps on them, and then he manages to wrestle them to the ground from the top and basically shift his body weight on top of them and basically bury them into the ground. There was also a couple other plays where, let's say he's in pass pro and let's say they're running some type of twist or stunt and he goes to pick up another guy, or let's say he even gets beat initially. I mean, every player gets beat initially. His recovery on pass snaps had been really good. He's able to really shift and activate his core and flip his body weight in front of a guy. There's been a couple reps I saw in this Bengals game where I'm like, whoa, you don't really see much guards doing that. And that's why he's got first round talent as a guard. That's not something you can really teach. People get beat. Sometimes people have poor technique, but do you have the natural muscles to be able to shift your body in this way? Yeah, I mean, and you highlighted a couple combination blocks where he and Max Mitchell had some good timing and stuff. So yeah, AVT unquestionably he's been the best Jets offensive lineman, and we had some concerns about him in the preseason, but I think he's kind of really answered those concerns, and we have to be quite happy with his play to this point.
Yeah, I feel like he's been great. Yeah, so here's a Elijah Moore block I was talking about. Is this? Yeah, that's him on the outside right here. There were a lot of good blocks on this play.
All right, let's watch more. Yeah, see, all right, all right, look. Now, yeah, does he get in there and stuff, but notice how he lets up a little bit at the end. Even before even so this is what I'm saying. Number one, he's not that big, so I'm not expecting him to move people. I'm not really expecting him to crack people, but there are some times, and it's not just you can't tell me that was a high effort block, Michael. Yeah, he did his job. He did his job. He got in there, right? It's not like he pulled a Kenny Galladay and was just totally disinterested.
Though? I don't love the Lakin at the top of this.
Oh yeah, let me see
right
that.
Here.
All right, can you play it one more time for me, please?
Yeah, go back. AVT is a good one on here too.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about Lakin, man, and there was a couple reps in this Bengals game where, Salah was talking about how big of a guy he is, and he's like 330 or whatever. He is pretty powerful. Like there was a couple times where he was in a pass set and he just, he struck the defensive lineman with both of his hands, really good timing. And, usually like when you're in pass pro, like you're not really moving a guy that much. You're hopefully just stopping them in their tracks. But I saw him like the guy's running into him. He throws both of his hands and he's able to not only just stop the guy, but like throw them back. So like, if the technique's good and the timing and the punch is good, he moves people. So, it's been mostly bad from Tomlinson, unfortunately, but you did see a couple plays of like why he was like a player who's been in the league for a long time and why he got the contract that he did. All right, let's try to run through this chat quickly and get the hell out of here. Let's see. Are people still fighting in here? All right. I'm trying to keep. Where the hell did I leave off? I wonder if I'm better at doing the chat than Blewett. I don't think so. He's got more experience than me. But everyone's always complaining about him, so I have to ask. By the way,
it's hard because we like to go pretty in depth. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Michael, have you ever looked at Joe Blewett's high school record football?
I haven't. No.
You owe it to yourself. Modern day. What is it? Class of 2011. Class of 2011. Look them up on Max Preps, dude. They lost some games like 60-0. But no, I see. Blewett likes to fuck with me. It's like every time he's like, "Oh, Kyle Smith," like he was recording his like things, and like every time he can get a shot in at me, he likes to do it. So I got to get one in on him. But in his defense, they only had like, I don't know, 50 people in their graduating class. So like they barely had people on the football team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was bad, man. It was bad. I'm not seeing anything really. I'm going through the chat. I'm looking, but I'm not seeing anything that's like a question for us or anything that's really conversation worthy. Michael, did we talk about like Max Mitchell and some of like the numbers you had for him?
No,
I know
I don't think we talked.
Yeah,
about
why don't you do that, and I'll see if I can find anything that's chat worthy before we get out of here.
Yeah, no, I mean I like the way Mitchell has exceeded expectations so far. I think the first two games it was, he wasn't playing good necessarily, but relative to what you expected with him being a fourth round rookie, it was above what you could realistically hope for. But Bengals game, I think he had a good game. And then now you look at the body of work across 3 games and you compare it to some of the other rookies in the league, even the first round picks, and he's up there as one of the best rookie tackles so far. And in terms of how many pressures he's given up and his pressure rate, he's second best among rookie tackles right now. Only Tyler Smith of the Cowboys has been better. And Neal and Ekwonu are at the bottom. So he's outplaying them right now. And anyone who watched Monday Night Football saw that Neal gave up, I think, 3 sacks to DeMarcus Lawrence in the first half. And granted, it's DeMarcus Lawrence, but Max Mitchell also played Myles Garrett last week. And, he got him a few times, but mostly was better than you would expect. Definitely better than I think Neal looked. And also Ekwonu played Myles Garrett in week 1, and he gave up multiple sacks. So, yeah, he's looking pretty good relative to expectations and relative to other rookies. Again, that's not to say he's been great so far. I guess across 3 games, I would say he's been a slightly below average starter, but that is a great start for a rookie and much more than the Jets could have expected.
Yeah, I think he's been solid overall, and he's exceeded my expectations. The Cleveland game, there was times when it was a little ugly in the Baltimore game, but I thought that this particular game was a huge jump in the right direction. And I could definitely say that the guy plays hard. I mean, it should be evident with the fumble recoveries that he's had. He's definitely in the game, but it's never like a lack of effort. Like compare his level of effort versus someone like Chuma Edoga. Like just like look at he's not the greatest athlete in the world. And I've gotten a little bit of pushback from Joe and from Harold's another one who's given me a little bit of pushback in the chat with his athletic. I mean, there's a reason he went in the 4th round. I mean, to say that he's somewhat limited athletically, is not. I don't think that's going out on a limb there. But just look at the urgency that he gets into a pass set. Like when you watch him, he really he shoots that right foot, his kick foot repeatedly. And I think he kind of does that, because he's a little bit limited athlete, but he's ready to go. He plays whistle to whistle. And I think that he's very coachable from everything we've heard from Benson and things like that. So, 4th rounder, where they got him, I'm quite happy at this point. I do want to see him kind of shift up his punches a little bit. He likes to really punch with his inside arm a lot. I think he kind of does that a lot because he has shorter arms. Do you know his arm length off the top of your head, Michael?
I can pull it up. I think it was on the shorter side.
It's definitely on the shorter side. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but the simple fact is
33 and a half. So
yeah, so 33 and a half for a tackle is definitely on the shorter side. Yeah. But players will do that when, because one arm, just basic, what is it? Whatever. I don't know the science term, but whatever. But biomechanics, is that it? One arm is longer than 2. So you can extend your body one way longer than reaching with 2. So I think it's a little bit of that. But, I feel like, teams might be able to counter that and hit him with a good inside move, have a direct path to the quarterback. So I want to see him switch things up a little bit there. But, he's young. But I like it. Let's see. Someone was telling me not to go, but listen, I'll tell you guys this. Michael has stayed way past the amount of time that he initially told me. So I'm very grateful for that. And you guys should be too. I'm going to go. I initially told myself I was going to do 7. It's 7:20. I have to get out of here and go to the gym, but I will certainly be here next week. I don't know if Michael will be joining me next week. Would certainly love that if he can, but I will be here around the same time next week. So, Michael, any closing thoughts?
No, thanks for having me. Definitely was no problem to go this long. It was great conversation. So, thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, I had a fun time. I do miss our boy Blewett, but he's gotta do what he has to do. All right, guys, it was a pleasure. There's a bunch of people in here for quite a bit of time. I'm very grateful for that. Plug the website, jetsxfactor.com. Michael's got a ton of stuff up. I was reading some of his articles earlier today, and there's some of the premium exclusive content. Blewett's, got a lot of film reviews and stuff. So, check out the website, jetsxfactor.com. You get a free month. Anyway, really appreciate all you guys. And I will see you next week, and let's go Jets, and Mitch Trubisky sucks. Peace.